said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Monday, which we often refer to as Meatloaf Monday. Hit it, man.
I think I'll try the meatloaf sandwich.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, meatloaf.
What is it? I'm only asking in case I have to describe it later to a doctor.
Look, it's nutritious. It's delicious.
Made out of meat. Add ketchup if you want. I couldn't care less.
I think my favorite part is the I couldn't care less. Hey, that's JP pushing buttons on the board. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm great. How about you?
You're doing good because the Vanderbilt folded in the second half.
What can I
they
say?
folded in the fourth quarter.
No, I mean, hey, listen, what can I say? I mean, we're on a roll here. Auburn had a bye week, so they didn't lose this past week.
Auburn, Auburn, they won their bye. So.
Well, I think it was a tie.
You're such a pain. I'm going to come across this desk in a minute. All right, listen, I got a good show for you in spite of the fact that I work with a Bama fan. We got a great show laid on for you. Coming up the beginning of hour number 2, going to have a guy named Morgan Murphy coming on. You may or may not know Morgan Murphy, but you're going too soon because he just announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate, and he's a viable candidate. So Morgan Murphy, a former Navy captain, who has also been an emissary working in the Trump administration on matters related to Ukraine and served the Tuberville camp as well. Morgan Murphy going to be on with us coming up beginning of hour number 2. You're going to want to hear that one. And then I got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, crime in the streets. I mean, I'm just amazed at Democrats right now. It's like they want crime. It's like they like crime, and they were lying through their teeth. We had a major shooting, major. I don't mean like a little bit. Like we're talking about 14 people injured, 2 dead, just in Montgomery this past weekend, right down the street from our state capitol. So what's up with blue cities? We're going to talk about crime in the streets and how Republicans are determined to handle it. Crime in the streets, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I'm calling it America Rising. Now, you know what? That's not just a lofty title. That's where I think we are. I think that we are literally on the way back to where we should have never left. America Rising. It's the economy. It's the military. It's our standing on the world stage. And it's really, if you get down to it, you can feel it. It's kind of like a sense of things among those who love our country. And I'll talk about it. America Rising, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, I didn't get to it on Friday. My goal is to get to it today. Canceling comedy. Is it possible for comedians to still do their gig like in today's world? Are they allowed to say things that might offend, but they're also still funny? And can people still laugh at themselves? I don't know. There seems to be a lack of that, at least on the left anyway. We're going to talk about canceling comedy. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys, as always, that the opening monologue, the Rightside Way, is brought to you daily, sponsored by attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, law firm of Wilmer and Lee, 30-year veteran in the practice of law, longtime conservative. I'll tell you about Stan McDonald here in just a few minutes. All right, I got to weigh in on something that has been in the news a lot lately. There's been a great deal of angst coming from the left about the U.S. military getting rid of DEI and enforcing standards. God forbid the military should actually have standards. Only those who have no clue about what the military is for would ever have trouble with that. But for the sake of debate, let me just ask you all a hypothetical question. You ready? Here we go. What if you were being held hostage by terrorists in a foreign land, but you learned that the U.S. government was working on a rescue plan? Okay. The planning and the execution of your rescue would fall to one of 2 teams. The choice of the team to execute the mission was yet to be determined, but the National Command Authority had authorized a quick reaction force from one of 2 separate command groups. Okay. 2 teams getting geared up. Which one's it going to be? Well, each one of these command groups is authorized to handpick the members of their respective strike force. One commander issued a call for volunteers with combat experience, people who were experts with weapons and communications and medical qualifications. They had to be skilled in survival, hand-to-hand combat, and hostage rescue, and capable of either airborne or waterborne insertions and extractions. 2/3 of the team had to also be fluent in the language of the area of operations. Basically, we're talking about a bunch of highly skilled special mission unit Tier 1 operators. The other team upon which you may have to rely for your rescue in a foreign land being held by terrorists, well, that commander asked for a strike force that was diverse in its makeup, with equitable distribution in the team makeup reserved for various genders and ethnicities and LGBTQ plus service members, and at least one member of the rescue team had to be transgender. All the team had to be vaccinated and boosted and be able to perform at least a minimum of 60% at least on the passing of the scores for the new Army physical fitness test. Oh, and they had to be, qualified at the basic level in the past year with their assigned weapon. Oh, and foreign language skills, well, those were encouraged, but only if it meant not disturbing the equitable makeup of the team. Oh, and also each member of the diversity team would have to have been evaluated in their past 2 evaluations as having been compliant with the commander's sexual harassment and equal opportunity programs and have signed a waiver that they were willing to assume the risk of their mission. Now, okay, if you're the hostage and your life depended on one of these 2 teams getting in to rescue you, you think about it, which team would you want? The best of the best or the diverse of the rest? That's where we are right now. We are putting together the U.S. military that is designed to answer our nation's call and fight our battles, win our wars, defeat and deter our enemies. And the left wants to make sure it's filled with unicorns and anime characters. Look, I'll submit to you that there has never been a successful recruiting campaign for a hazardous mission that solicited the volunteers to join its ranks because it was a safe place where they would learn how to be compliant and sensitive to the needs of others. I'm going to tell you right now, when I was young and considering my own military path, there was nothing about the allure of becoming a paratrooper, a ranger, a pathfinder that ever was presented to me as anything less than the understanding that it was an elite, professional, rugged, hard, dangerous, deeply, deeply satisfying opportunity, at the same time designed to be the best at leading others, making decisions under extreme pressure, being the best at killing people and breaking things. And the same should be true of any effort to convince young red-blooded men and women today to join the armed forces. You tell them you're going to make them soft and they'll blow it off and look elsewhere for their adventure. But you tell them you're going to give them a life of high energy and high yield and high expectations, and they will flock to the recruiter's office, which we, by the way, have been seeing in recent months, haven't we? You may have heard of Sir Ernest Shackleton, the famous explorer who launched a mission to explore Antarctica over a century ago. One write-up that I saw described the outcome of the mission as both a great failure and one of the greatest human achievements ever. When he was looking for men, it is said that Shackleton did not want any gallivanters or dandies. So he ran an ad that said precisely what was needed. The ad reportedly read this. It said, quote, "Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in the event of success." It is listed as one of the top 100 advertisements of all time. And Shackleton said of it afterward that so overwhelming was the response to his appeal that it seemed as though all the men of Great Britain were determined to accompany him. Why? I mean, why was that ad so successful? And likewise, why was the Army's Be All You Can Be ad campaign successful? Or the Marines, the few, the proud, the Marines? Why are young Rangers required to memorize the Ranger Creed that tells them that their country expects them to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier? And to be able to say, though I be the lone survivor, Rangers lead the way. Look, I say all of that because I found a story yesterday that I'd never heard of. It was a story of exactly what I'm describing. It's a story of a man who got it, a man who understood the mission and the times that he was serving in, a man who did something heroic, and he did it because he was committed 110% to the idea that if he did not do it, someone else would have to pay the price, a man who chose the rugged path no matter what the odds. And I learned about the story because President Ronald Reagan had found it so impressive that he apparently included it in his 1981 inaugural address to the nation. The man I'm talking about was a private in the 168th Infantry in World War I. The 167th Infantry Regiment, along with Alabama's own 167th Infantry, became legendary subordinate units of the U.S. Army's 42nd Infantry Division. That 42nd Infantry Division was known as the Rainbow Division, by the way. It wore a rainbow patch on their uniforms. They were called this because they were the original version of diversity, if you get down to it. You see, the 42nd Division, the Rainbow Division, was formed out of volunteers and guardsmen from all over America and brought together to form one cohesive unit. It was like all the colors of the rainbow formed together. It was farm boys from Alabama fighting next to city slickers from New York, and they became legends on the battlefields of France. They threw themselves against the enemy so completely that the 42nd Division is said to have been one of the deciding forces in the turning of the war. At the end of it all, though, the 42nd Division, they had to cut their patch in half. They did. They chose to. They cut their patch in half because they had left so many of their brothers on the battlefield. And to this day, that Rainbow Division patch is still seen, still worn, and it's half of a rainbow. There's a statue erected in their honor in Montgomery. The Rainbow Viaduct still exists in Birmingham, named after them. And Rainbow City, Alabama, was named after that unit. But the man I want to tell you about today was one of their privates, and his name was Martin Treptow. Martin August Treptow. He was raised on a farm in the town of Eagle Point, Wisconsin. In the summer of 1917, Martin Treptow was working as a barber in a small shop in the town of Cherokee, Iowa. When the call went out for volunteers, Martin enlisted in the Army. And on July 29th, 1918, Private Treptow was serving on the Western Front with Company M, 168th Infantry, 84th Brigade, 42nd Division. The Rainbow Division had been in the thickest of the fight, and the battle in which they were engaged that day was at Chateau Thierry. It wound up being recorded in history as one of the most important battles of World War I. Well, at one point, a messenger was needed to deliver an important message to one of the company's platoons. In spite of the heavy machine gun and artillery fire, Private Treptow, then just 24 years of age, he volunteered, he grabbed the message, and he ran out under fire. And as he was nearing the platoon leader, Treptow was actually killed by a hail of machine gun fire. But later, they found his diary. And on the first page, he had written something he titled, "My Pledge." It had a dramatic impact on the members of his unit. So many of them read it that they began to write it in their own diaries. It became known as the Treptow Pledge, and it was entered into the congressional record after the war. It was later quoted by President Ronald Reagan. And here's what it said. Listen to this, the Treptow Pledge. He wrote, "America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure, I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." You see, Martin Treptow got it. A man like that is who I want on any team coming to save me, I'll tell you. That's the burning heart of a warrior who's willing to give more than he gets. And I'm telling you, if we will tell young Americans that a life of daring do awaits them, they will beat down the door to be a part of it. But if we tell them that we will give them the ability to be more sensitive, more understanding, more compliant, then we as a nation are going to be lost to history. So yeah, returning to my analogy of the hostage and the two handpicked teams, if I were the hostage and I knew my life and my freedom were at stake, I'd want the best of the best coming to get me, wouldn't you? The sensitive team, they can stay home and play Tea Party for all I care. America needs and deserves the best of the best serving in our uniform. That's all that matters. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Martin Treptow. I tell you what, go look it up. Treptow, the Treptow Pledge. It's pretty amazing. I mean, he literally wrote that he would do all that he had to do as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on him alone. That's the kind of people you want. That's the kind of people you want in uniform. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. I believe the interview we just had with Mike Durant, author of In the Company of Heroes, the pilot who was shot down in Black Hawk Down. He became a national icon, an international icon, really, as images of him being held captive in Somalia were transmitted around the world. The way he tells his story, though, is as amazing as his story. So sit back, enjoy your time, hear about things that you're going to think about for the rest of your life after this discussion we're going to have with Mike Durant on the Just Right podcast. Yeah, let's do a show. 1, 2, 3, hey! Hey, Mike Durant, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored to have you. And listen, I'm going to run through just a quick intro of who you are so folks knew who I got sitting across from me. All
sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. Some of this is going to be unpacked in more detail, but I know for a fact you were born in New Hampshire, but you call Alabama home, have for a number of years. 22 years active military. Mm-hmm. First enlisted, I think, in 79? Weren't you a Spanish linguist?
I was.
Yeah.
And don't ask me to speak Spanish. They taught us to, the school that I went to, the focus was to just be able to understand it, not speak it. So I can still understand a little bit, but I'm not a very good speaker.
Did some intercept work down there in Panama, right?
I did.
Yeah. My I got family ties there. My grandfather was post commander. It was at Corozal, I think it was one of the years ago. Became a warrant officer in '83, which I still don't understand the warrant officer mafia. I never knew whether you guys got saluted or what was going on with that. But anyway, warrant officer in '83, flight school, Fort Rucker. 5 years later, you were selected for the elite 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, which we're going to talk about in a lot of detail. 3 distinguished flying crosses, Bronze Star with a V device, Purple Heart, and fairly rare in modern times, a Prisoner of War medal. And then you retired as a CW4, am I right? Chief Warrant Officer 4?
That's correct. 2 DFCs.
2 DSCs. Yeah. Well, okay, just 2. Got your undergrad and your master's from Embry-Riddle, is that right?
That's correct.
And built a successful defense contracting firm, Pinnacle Solutions, which you've retired from now. And you're married, and most importantly, you've had 6 kids.
We do.
Got your own basketball team.
Yeah, with some bench. Yeah.
Well, good enough. Well, hey, thanks for being on the Just Right podcast. Appreciate you.
Again, my pleasure. I do always enjoy time spent with you. I think, we certainly have some common history, and you get it. And it's kind of nice to talk to people who get it, because when you talk to people who don't get it, it's a little bit frustrating, and you got to get drilled down into areas you feel like it's tedious, but with you, that's not the case.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. And we'll just have to make sure we don't slip into acronyms or something like that.
Well, that is easy to do, and then you can lose a lot of folks that way. But I've gotten pretty good at trying to avoid that.
Well, let me ask you this. I want folks to get to know who you are as much as your story, because your story is amazing. I've got your book sitting right here in the Company of Heroes. I read it years ago, and I've had a copy on my shelf. In fact, I think I told you before the show, my son nabbed it. He's stationed down at Benning, so he's got it with him, so I had to get another copy for today. But let me ask you, how did it start with you in the military? You're a kid in New Hampshire. Why the military? I mean, what happened there that said, that's where I want to lead my life?
So, I characterize myself as a blue-collar kid. I mean, working parents, we were certainly not poor, but we weren't really well off either, and never saw myself as necessarily college material. I did fairly well in school when I tried, but I wasn't necessarily motivated to go to college. And I lived in a paper mill town, and a lot of people went to work in the mill. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to do that. That's, if that's what you want to do. But I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And when I was about 14, and it's about the time you start thinking about, what am I going to do when I get out of college? Doesn't keep you up at night, but, you start pondering that kind of stuff. I had a major turning point in my life. I went on a helicopter flight with a friend of the family.
No kidding.
His name is Joe Brigham. He was a warrant officer in the National Guard. He also had his own business. And as I found out later, I wasn't the only young teenager that he ever did this with. He took a few of us up that he wanted to try to inspire, and it absolutely impacted me. I mean,
no kidding.
We're flying over Mount Washington, which is the highest mountain in the Northeast. It's 6,280 feet. We're basically hovering. The aircraft was kind of primitive by today's standards, I guess I would say. It was kind of a glass bubble, if you remember the MASH helicopters, similar to that. And it's like you're just floating in space. And I'm looking at, like, again, I'd flown on a small airplane before, but never anything like this experience. And I said, you could actually do this as a job? And he says, yeah. And he said, you could, if you join the Army, they'll send you to flight training, and you
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades, y'all. Pulling pins on truth grenades. Hey, text lines are open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it. Same number for both. Before I go any further, though, I must indeed tell you about Attorney Stan McDonald. Yes, indeedy. Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. Look, not only is Stan the kind of guy who can stand up for your legal needs, and I mean that with all sincerity, He's also a longtime conservative. I mean, the man's been in the trenches, in the mix, in the fray on all the things that right side ruffians care about. So, yeah, he's a longtime conservative. But listen, as an attorney, Stan McDonald has handled thousands of real estate transactions for his clients over the years. He can do work for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So that being said, if you need an attorney in North Alabama, Stan McDonald. I'm going to give you his phone number. Stan McDonald, the law firm's Wilmer and Lee. The phone number is 256-533-0202. That's Stan McDonald, 256-533-0202. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And no hesitation made. The quality of service is ever going to be bad. It wouldn't be. Why would I say that? He wouldn't advertise my show if he's bad. There you go. Whoop, whoop. All right. It is indeed Meatloaf Monday. You having meatloaf tonight?
I wish.
It's Meatloaf Monday at Pruitt's right down the road. I've tried to tell you this.
That's true. You have mentioned this to me several times.
What are you doing? Leave here, go directly to Pruitt's.
I just got to learn how to make my mom's meatloaf. That's all I got to do.
You're not going to learn how to make your mom's meatloaf. Only your mom can make your mom's meatloaf.
I could try, but it won't be as good.
Yours would be some kind of dry, toasty, tacky facsimile thereof.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Go to Pruitt's, get you a meat and three, including meatloaf.
I may just have to do that.
JT Lacey Springs says, as usual, great monologue. Thank you, sir. Says, as to meatloaf, Westside Grill, Huntsville serves a beef and pork meatloaf. Ooh, with caramelized onions mixed in. The best part is it's wrapped in bacon. Bacon! And smothered with brown gravy if desired. My God.
I will say I think it was named Puckett's or Pickett's in Nashville had a smoked meatloaf.
I've had that.
Oh my goodness. The smoked meatloaf is fantastic.
Holy cow.
There's so many ways to do meatloaf and none of them are bad.
But JT's also talking about bacon wrapped meatloaf.
That's true. Bacon wrapped meatloaf too.
Holy cow. All right, does your mom make hers with like a ketchupy layer on top of it?
Yeah. It's ketchup and mustard mixed it. It's like a bunch of different
That's the way it's
things
supposed
in one
to
sauce.
happen.
Yeah.
That's right. Matthew from Meridianville says, hello, Phil and JP. Happy Meatloaf Monday. You too, sir. Matthew from Meridianville here said, formerly from Washington State. Oh, that's Matthew. I just realized. Matthew gives him applause. He's back in the States. That's good. It's an excellent monologue, sir. It's so good to see the military returning back to the one they should be, having an image of strength, power, and an ownership of providing the best of the best to protect our country against all that seek to destroy what we stand for. Have a great day. Hey, you know what? You have a great day as well. A great Alabama day. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, taking a break, and we will be right back.
As a career. And I'm like, okay, if this is a possibility for me,
Sold.
yeah, I'll take it. And ultimately, when I got old enough, I went and talked to the recruiter. And you probably heard the joke, you know a recruiter's lying because their lips are moving. They have a quota. They're trying to fill certain slots.
Sure.
And there are programs that are available sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And he told me, sorry, but flight school program's not available for people coming right in off the street. You're going to have to join the military first, and then you can apply for flight school afterwards, which is all correct. But I didn't really know whether he was telling me the truth about, could I have applied to go directly to flight school? But either way, and another smart thing I did, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have made some good decisions along the way, is I spoke to someone else about joining the military, and I think you and Jared had talked about this, or he did, and you don't want to just go join the military, right? There has to be a purpose to it. I mean, serving the country is noble and it's great, and we need people to do that. But for you as an individual, you should also be thinking about, what can I do with this in the life after the military?
Sure, absolutely.
And I was offered to go to, as we discussed before we got on camera, the Spanish language school in Monterey, California, to be in military intelligence. And how marketable is that? I don't know. But, I was convinced that, well, they'll send me to school for a year to learn Spanish. I'll be a military intelligence analyst. That's probably something
Sounds sexy.
worth something, yeah. and then I can possibly apply for flight school. Okay, we'll go ahead and sign this. And it was one of those cases where I had gone off to talk to the recruiter on my own, and then came back to the house. I'd already signed the paperwork. My parents had not been informed at all. And they were kind of shocked, right? But I said, I think this sounds like a pretty good deal. Let's give it a try. And then I was stunned by the reality of basic training. I just,
no kidding.
I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I just wasn't.
But who really is?
Yeah, I guess no one is.
That's back when drill sergeants could be drill sergeants.
Yes, I mean it was quite a lifestyle change. Is all I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living in an open barracks with 20 guys that you've never met before from all over the country. They treat by design. They treat you like crap, right? I mean, it's probably not as bad as some of the other military training that goes on, but it's going from a high school kid with long hair and concert T-shirts on and didn't care about anything except girls and some sports. This is a radical lifestyle change. And I at that point was thinking, I have made a mistake. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I don't know what I did think it was going to be, but it certainly shocked me to the point where I was thinking about, I don't know if I can get out of this, but if I can, I need to.
Well, was there anybody in your life like you had this warrant officer from the Guard who gave you the flight in the helicopter, but did you have any military in your family? I mean, was there anything watching it as you grew up? Like my family's been generational Army, so my son watched 3 generations before him do stuff, and then he wanted to do it.
Right.
But did you have anything like that?
They were in the Guard. My uncles were in the Guard. My father was in the Guard. But to me, that's different. I mean, you just sort of see him, go once a month. Not that the Guard isn't a great,
No,
organization, but it's just
it wasn't a full life.
Right. And you still live at home. Unless you get deployed, obviously, but I wasn't prepared. And I was, again, to the point where if I could get out of this, I need to, and was convinced that I should stay by the drill sergeant, and I did. And at that point, got like super motivated. I got like the PT award, physical training award of the whole class, and in basic training, I scored the highest, and just really got motivated that, okay, if I am going to do this, I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can. And then I went on to language school, advanced individual training, where they teach you how to actually do what you're on contract to do. And then I went to Panama, and that's where my assignment was. And I'm at that point, probably an E3 enlisted private, and working in a military intelligence unit, and coincidentally run across men.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all have talked about this show. This one, like y'all. It goes from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the line from there to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. By golly, that's just the radio. That's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, logging into the live stream, looking in the studio, audio, video, both of it. Places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you podcasters, and there's a ton of y'all that podcast. It's amazing to me how many of y'all podcast this show. Bottom line is this. I say all that all the time because I'm acknowledging the fact that there's a bunch of y'all that catch this show in a variety of ways, and wherever you do, just know this, it means the world to us. Y'all are the only reason why we do it. So thank you very much. John from Huntsville texting in. He says, if I get to my text, he says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you. He said, also, did you hear there's supposed to be a supermoon in the sky tonight? I did not. By the way, JP, I was watching the Alabama game, and with about 1 minute to go, I turned it off, assuming that at least Alabama wasn't going to meet the point spread. I found out later they scored another touchdown, which messed up my online point spread contest. So instead of saying something nice about Alabama, I hope they lose to Missouri.
He's just coping. What can I say? And yeah, we covered with like 30 seconds left, so just a little cherry on top.
I remember you after game 1. You were not good company. You weren't.
All right. I was much better company than a lot of Alabama fans. Let's just say that. Trust me.
You had to. You had a public persona you had to
Yeah,
upkeep. We're going to get into crime in America, but you were pointing something out a minute ago.
Oh yeah, we were talking about this Virginia AG candidate.
Oh my God.
Jay Jones being outed as
Oh, it's on screen right now.
wanting to have or wishing that the Speaker of the House in Virginia, who is a Republican, would be shot and killed, and his kids would
And
be
his kids
killed.
too.
And yeah, so I had some of the text right here. If y'all haven't seen it, but he pretty much says that he wants to put, he wants to put 2 bullets in the head of the Speaker of the House of Virginia, and then says that he thinks him and his wife are evil and that they're, quote, breeding little fascists, and that people only change when the guy or person he was texting asked, are you really wanting his kids to get hurt? And he said, yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on from policy.
My gosh.
So, and this guy's still in the race, by the way, has not dropped out.
So he's running for attorney general. That's the guy who prosecutes crime for the state of Virginia. This is the guy. By the way, what's his background? Is he besides being a state legislator? Is he a prosecutor himself? Has he been a prosecutor?
He claims to. There's something about his legal background that apparently some people are questioning if it's even true. So he could have. I don't think he was a prosecutor, but I think some of his legal background may be fabricated as well. I've seen some people speculating. So this guy is just a walking fraud and walking hateful person.
Yeah. So I saw the headlines. This is the thing I told you earlier. I saw headlines, and maybe I'm jaded because I'm so used to something being said in politics and someone takes it and runs with it and makes a mountain out of a molehill or creates a storyline from a thread of truth. And not in this case, man. I mean, for a guy who wants to run to be attorney general, texting with someone else and not even saying, oh man, I was just joking. He doubled down on it.
Yeah.
And he's talking about double tapping the Speaker of the House, was it?
Yes.
In the head. And then, oh, by the way, like to see his wife and kids dead also.
Yep.
And that guy wants to be the attorney general.
The chief law enforcement officer of Virginia is what he wants to be.
That's just
and
unbelievable.
But it brings up, it's like, how many of these Democrats genuinely feel that way about Republicans in this nation? And like, just like what happened to Charlie Kirk, it's like their reaction to that, they would react the same way if, somebody like us died as well, because that's how they feel about the Republicans and conservatives in America right now. It's like, how many of those genuinely deep down feel that way and, have just not been outed for it? It's scary. But yeah, and if that wouldn't have come out and he would have become, the AG of Virginia, you would have had a guy that feels that way about conservatives being the AG of Virginia, and nobody would even know.
By the way, what was he mad about at the time? Was he mad about a piece of legislation, a policy issue? Was he mad because they got into a fight at a bar the night before? I mean, what was he mad about? Do we have any idea?
It was after a speech that he gave. I can't recall what speech it was, but it was some speech that the Speaker of the House in Virginia was giving that he was responding to that too.
I mean, not this wouldn't excuse it either, but I mean, like if you found him, like if you caught him dating your wife or something, I mean, I could see where there might be passion involved, but that would still be the wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's just mad because of politics, and that's his solution, is to text that to somebody and then double down. All right. So the bottom line is this guy ought to be disqualified from. I'll tell you what, he's not going to be disqualified from office. Let me step back. Lawyer Phil is going to constantly be mindful of the fact that you are innocent till proven guilty and that there's been no alleged or indicted or convicted crime. That being said, I have to look at this from an ethical, moral standpoint too. He wants to hold the highest law enforcement job in the state of Virginia, which is a major state. It's a seat of power. And that's the kind of guy, that hothead, wants to take the office.
Yeah.
I'm saying no, thank you.
And he's going on TV shows saying, look.
Yeah, what's his response been?
He said, I regret deeply making those texts. It was a mistake.
Deeply.
No, you regret getting caught.
That's what it is. I regret deeply being caught. Oh,
yeah.
Did I say that? I'm sorry.
And so, I mean, the ad that his opponent, Republican candidate for AG, has already put out has been, it's been one that should bury any chances he has of running in the race. But like I said, he hasn't dropped out. So, hopeful. I mean, maybe that's better, maybe he just gets destroyed in the election, and maybe that sends a message.
By the way, who dropped the diamond? Who was he texting when this happened? It was a text between him and I mean, I would assume that the other person had to be the one who divulged the text message.
It was.
themselves.
I actually have not seen who this other person was that he was texting, but yep, they were the one. They were the one that released. And if you see screenshots of the text, the other person he was texting was saying, "Please stop. I don't like you talking like this enough." And he just kept going. So,
Wow.
and if you haven't seen the ad that his opponent, the Republican candidate, put up in response to this, it's pretty. What's like, wow.
Can you play?
Now, I can go find it and pull it if you would like, but yes.
We might need to. It kind of fits. So, all right. So this first dipper we're doing is called Crime in the Streets. Now, the only way you can deal with crime in the streets is to have law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges, and city officials who will help you keep crime off your streets. If you've got city officials passing ordinances that make the local laws and ordinances weaker, if you've got city officials who are defunding the police, if you've got prosecutors who won't prosecute or who constantly plead down, and you've got judges who don't want to sentence, and then sometimes, I guess if you got state legislators, laws like cashless bail and crap like that. By the way, you know what cashless bail is? That's called get out of jail free. That's what that is. The get out of jail free card. That's all that is. Cashless bail. You have no skin in the game. You're a flight risk because you got no skin in the game. Yeah. So cashless bail. What a ridiculous premise. Anyway, that's not even bail. That's called get out of jail free. Why do they even call it bail? But the reality is, if you don't have those city officials and prosecutors, law enforcement, and judges all working in concert to try and bring crime to heel, guess what? You're going to have increased crime. We just saw it this past weekend in Montgomery, and it was unbelievable. Now, listen, what happened in Montgomery, some of y'all are familiar with the layout of Montgomery, but you may know where downtown, where the Impact is. That's the Montgomery Performing Arts Center. I've been to a number of concerts there. It's also got the Renaissance Hotel is right there, kind of connected to the Impact. Across the street from that is a Hampton Inn, which stands in a historic building on the corner of, I think that's Commerce, and I'll think of the other one here in a minute. And then right next to that is a place called the Alley, which is a very cool kind of walk between buildings tunnel almost that has restaurants and things in it, one of which is one of my favorites called Saza's. 14 people wounded, 2 killed in a massive gun battle right there on the corner next to those major. By the way, that's also, a block away from the Montgomery Biscuits baseball stadium. So this is not even supposed to be a bad area. I mean, Montgomery's got problems. It does. High crime and violent crime, for that matter. But they've been getting things under control. But we understand that there was a historically black college, university, HBCU tournament of some kind.
I think it was a homecoming event of some
Was it?
sorts.
Okay. So there's a lot of people in and around there because the Crampton Bowl is right down there. And I read that it was really maybe only 2 people who got mad at each other and pulled guns, started blazing away in a crowd indiscriminately, like they didn't care who they hit when they're trying to hit each other. So they're just blazing away. All I know is I'm sitting here watching the videos of the police closing off that entire city block. It's the crime zone. And I'm thinking how many times I have walked those sidewalks and eaten at those restaurants, stayed in those very hotels that I just talked about, gone to the Biscuits game. I mean, it's literally just down the hill from the state capitol, y'all. This is not like off in the hood area of Montgomery. This is down the road from where Governor Ivey and the legislature do business. So anyway, that happened this past weekend. And of course, you got Mayor Stephen Reed, who's an absolute flaming liberal. By the way, in case you're not familiar, let's talk about the Reeds for a minute. Can I do that? I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege. Joe Reed is the mayor, or excuse me, the leader of the teachers union. For years and years and years, Joe Reed has got the teachers union wrapped around his little finger. And Joe Reed was second only in the teachers union to the guy who was in charge. But let's talk about Joe Reed for a minute. Joe Reed is also a race-baiting charlatan. Joe Reed will get on any given speech and make sure that everybody understands that Democrats are for black people and that white people are evil. And yet, you know, half his party in Alabama is white, and he just discounts them at every turn. In fact, he changes the rules to make sure that they have no say. And then the mayor of Montgomery is his son. Okay, that tells you where we are. So the mayor of Montgomery is a son of one of the most influential race baiters and charlatans in the state of Alabama, and longtime head of the Democrat Party and teachers union. And he's now the mayor of Montgomery. So that being said, we've got a problem in Montgomery with crime, and it just came to a head again last night. So yeah, there's that.
By the way, I found the 30-second ad from Jason Myers on Jay Jones.
Oh, I'll tell you
like
what.
to play it.
Yeah, you want to play it? Can you play it
want
without
to.
an ad? There's no ad mixed in or anything. We can get it up there.
Mhm.
No other ad mixed in on it.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. We'll go before we go to the break. Let's go ahead and play. We're talking about crime, and we're talking about the right people there to enforce it and to do something about it, and that includes attorneys general, by the way. And in Virginia, they got a problem. Play it.
Washington Post confirms Jay Jones sent texts that imagined shooting the Republican Speaker of the House. Jay Jones wished the Speaker's wife could watch her own child die in her arms. It's so disgusting. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Jay Jones confirmed that he hoped an opponent's children could die to advance his political agenda. Can you trust Jay Jones to protect your children?
I'm Jason Yares, candidate for Attorney General. I sponsor this ad.
Wow. You know, there's times when I've seen ads and you look at it and go, come on, man, at least speak truth. You know, where's all they did there was to say, this is what he said.
And then provided sources to go look at yourself.
And he has not denied that he said it, right?
Nope. He's just expressed regret for saying it.
All right. Take me to a break, JP. Wow. Expressed regret. Well, at least he expresses regret. How many Democrats don't? Anyway, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
In the parking lot.
In the parking lot
of our, because he was an
was
MI
there a food
guy.
truck and y'all were standing in line together or what?
No, but he was a military intelligence guy. So
Oh, yeah.
I was in a military intelligence unit, and at the time he's only probably a major or whatever, but he was already pretty well known, and he showed up, and he obviously very easy individual to identify.
You were there later,
And then
saw him
years
again,
later we
yeah.
go back and bag him. But anyway, so I'm kind of enjoying this military intelligence job. And then one day I'm sitting on the beach, and I know this is a really long answer to your original question, but I'm sitting on the beach and these three Hueys fly low level right over the top of us with shooters in the back and their legs out the door. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I really want to do that. And so it sort of re-energized me. I applied for flight school and I got in. Had I not gotten into flight school, I probably would have separated from the military, because I did like it, but I felt like there was something more. But you know, getting to flight school was then a game changer.
All right, so you got to flight school. So warrant officer candidate, become a warrant officer. What W01, I guess. Go to flight school as a W01.
No, what's different today is that you actually get commissioned as a W1 pretty early in the pipeline. Back then, you didn't get it until you were done flight school. So you go
Okay.
through as a warrant officer candidate. And what it does is it changes your date of rank, is what it really does. I mean, you're still treated like, you know, you're an idiot, whether you're a W1 or not, but your date of rank changes. Yeah.
You guys, but I made the joke earlier about the warrant officer mafia.
Yeah.
Y'all are as warrant officers, you're technicians, you're technical specialists. You have niche, basically skills and knowledge, but you're also this kind of in between that folks who are junior in rank or junior as officers always look at you like, I don't know what to do with you right now.
Right.
Can I tell you what to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And but y'all kind of ride in the middle a lot of times, it seems like.
And we're the ones that keep everything running.
And you are the ones who keep everything running.
Yeah.
There's the backbone of the Army and the NCO Corps, and then there's y'all that keep things running.
Right.
But all right, so you became a warrant officer. You went to flight school down at Fort Rucker, which is now called Fort Rucker again soon, it looks like.
Yeah.
But coming up, and we were talking about your raisings, so to speak, up there in New Hampshire. We're going to go forward into your story here in a few minutes. But what about being raised, where you were, who you were with, whatever else? What do you think instilled things in you that you wind up needing later on? Like, Was it sports? Was it family? Was it faith? What did you see in your life that you looked later on like, I'm glad I had that because it built me up?
Yeah, faith is certainly part of it. Now, my faith journey had its ups and downs, and the lowest point probably being post Somalia, when looking back at what happened there, based on what we were trying to do, in my mind, there was no justification for the horrors that occurred there, and I couldn't accept it because it was horrible. I mean, there's not a lot of things I've witnessed that were as bad as what happened there, and we were there for all the right reasons. So anyway, but faith is certainly part of who I am, and it's come full circle. I think playing sports helped a lot too.
Was it hockey?
I played hockey. I played football. I mean, I wasn't great, but I played. And you learn about working and teamwork and your role in the organization to make the overall team a success. And those things to me are invaluable if you can learn them when you're young. So I think a combination of all those things.
Yeah. Good enough. It's amazing sometimes what we draw on later. You don't even realize you've got it now. I can remember things as a kid that I didn't know that I grumbled about, and then later on you realize that instilled something.
Yeah.
So you went on though to do some pretty amazing stuff. So in the world of aviation, Army aviation, the 160th, which you're wearing the shirt right now.
I am wearing the shirt.
You are wearing the shirt.
By design.
Night Stalkers. So the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. I remember when I first got in, we called them Task Force 160.
Right.
But you guys were the premier special operations rotary wing guys. And how did you, I've never heard, what is like, I know what selection is like to go to Ranger School. I know what selection is like to go to the Q course for Special Forces. But there's a selection process to go to the 160th. Am I right?
No, yeah. It's very similar, actually.
All right. So tell me about that.
So when I first found out about the unit, I was in Korea. And at the time, it was still what we call a black organization, meaning nobody publicly acknowledged that it existed because it had just been formed in the aftermath of the attempted rescue of the Iranian hostages.
Right.
That's why.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. I'm going to the phones because he held on during the break, and I want to honor his time. So Mike from Harvest. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing well, Senator Williams. How about yourself, sir?
I'm good, man. What's on your mind?
Well, you were talking about the Democrat candidate for Attorney General in Virginia with his comments.
Yeah.
His comments came out of reason he wanted to shoot the Speaker of the House, who was a moderate Republican, because the Speaker, Mr. Guilford, said nice things about a Democrat at their funeral.
Do what now?
That's why he wanted to kill him.
He wanted to kill him because he said nice things about a Democrat?
Yep.
That makes no sense. Why would extending a compliment be worth killing for?
Because evidently he felt that if Republicans are saying nice things about a Democrat, that Democrat really wasn't hardcore enough.
Oh wow. Okay.
You may want to look into that. Like I said, that makes it the language even worse.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
it actually puts a different twist on it and maybe even an uglier flavor. But
yes,
all right,
sir.
Good enough.
But I thought that you might like to know that.
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for hanging on during the break, buddy.
No problem, sir. You have a wonderful day, sir.
You too. Take care. Hey, on this crime in the streets thing. So yeah, Montgomery, Alabama. And by the way, if you haven't seen the headlines, I wonder why they're not out there. Why is this not national news? It should be. And if it's not picked up very soon, I'm gonna really question this because that's a mass shooting. But that's right smack down the road from our state capital. But look around at what's happening in other places. Portland is just an absolute mess. And the governor and the mayor of Portland and the governor of Oregon are pretending that this is real. I just don't, listen, when you see pictures of the governor of Oregon, I don't know, she just screams liberal Karen. She just like screams liberal Karen. And
she encapsulates the Portland population well, unfortunately.
Well, there you have it. It says all you need to know. But the bottom line is the liberal policies are making it worse. And we're watching the ICE agents and DHS being attacked on the streets by Antifa. And then you got Chicago. And Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson out there with his flaming rhetoric is out there saying the Trump administration is now declaring war on Chicago. How about this? The one declaring war on Chicago are the Chicago Democrats because they won't do a thing to help their people. Well, we don't need that Trump help. Apparently you do, murder capital of the nation. Well, now the governor is just doing his thing too, J.D. Pritzker, just making it worse. But it's so bad that the other day, ICE agents in Chicago found their vehicle surrounded by a ring of 10 other vehicles, and they were basically trapped. And it was they put out an all call for police assistance, and the police did not respond. The police were ordered not to respond. Now, I'll be honest with you, at some point, I'm thinking that somebody in blue in one of these blue cities is going to have to say, screw y'all, we're doing what our job says do. But the National Police Union, the Fraternal Order of Police at the national level, the national FOP, came out and condemned Chicago leaders, saying that what happened right now with Chicago PD being told not to respond to ICE agents in distress is absolutely a violation of the basic tenets of what it means for policing, that you respond to a brother or sister in blue who is in distress, under fire, in need of assistance. You just don't not respond when that happens. That's a breakdown of the civil order right there. Department of Homeland Security, by the way, shows that ICE agents have now faced 1,000% increase in violence since the start of this year. 1,000%. Guess where it is? I'm sorry. Is it in red state Huntsville, Alabama? No. Is it in, I don't know, Nashville, Tennessee? No. You know where it is? All the blue cities. They've got to get a handle on it. Coming up next, Morgan Murphy running for U.S. Senate. He's got some thoughts on this. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Created because, the analysis indicated that, look, you can't just throw together a bunch of assets and go try to do a complicated mission like this. It's not going to work. And so they created the unit, and there was going to be a second attempt, but most people don't know that. But the unit started training long-range missions in the desert, all the things that were required to go prosecute that target. And we're pretty much getting to the point where they were ready to go, and then the hostages got released. But the smartest decision maybe ever made by our government was, okay, well, the hostages are released, but we still need this capability. So let's keep the organization intact, fund it, obviously because everything runs on funding, unfortunately. And today, I mean, it's just an amazing organization. It's gotten more amazing over the years. So when I found out about it, it was, like I said, it was still black. And it's like people whispered about it in bars, and it's like, wow, I read Tom Clancy books. That sounds really cool, And I was getting assigned to Fort Campbell, which is where the headquarters for the 160th is. So I'm thinking, all right, I go to Fort Campbell, I walk across the street, knock on the door, say, hey, I'm interested, what do I need to do? And I made the mistake of signing into the 101st Airborne Division before I went and talked to the 160th. And by doing that, committed me to 2 years in the 101st. But in the end, best thing that could have happened to me.
Got a lot of stick time doing that.
I did get a lot of stick time, and in Korea, I'd flown medevac. And medevac is, there's great experience. You got to make a lot of decisions on the fly, quick response, bad weather, and you're flying by yourself. I was 22 years old. I'm flying real world medevac missions, as the pilot in command.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You mature fast or you die. Yeah. That's basically how it works.
And others die with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was great experience. But what I didn't have is multi-ship, meaning like formation flying, not a lot of, I had a decent amount of night vision goggle time, but not a ton. And you really need a lot of night vision goggle time to do well at the 160th. So getting that extra 2 years done at 101st really helped me out. I went to the instructor pilot school while I was in 101st. So now I'm an IP. I got much more time. I got a lot more formation flying experience.
Yeah.
And then the process begins. So the assessment, again, it's a volunteer organization. So everybody that goes there on the pilot side is a volunteer. And then you have to go through an assessment, a lot like some of these other special units that you're familiar with. I mean, it's a psych eval, it's a swim test, physical fitness test, flight eval, board, all that stuff. And it happens in about a 3 or 4 day period. You know, the board's always the most dramatic because you show up with your dress uniform on, you go in there and a bunch of people look like they want to hit you. And they ask you very difficult questions and try to put you in uncomfortable situations. And, you know, there is no right answer. They just want to see how you answer the question, you know, what your makeup is. And that just begins the process. So then you enter Green Platoon if they decide to take you. Green Platoon has changed quite a bit, but, you know, by the time you start to end, it's about 10 months where you're going through, again, land navigation, life-saving, physical fitness, just, you know, all the things that, you know, soldiering in general require at a high level. And then you start basic nav where you're navigating in the cockpit with a map and a compass. Because even today, I think the priority is, hey, look, you need to know how to navigate, even though you got multiple systems in the aircraft that'll get you there.
That's right.
When I was first in, GPS wasn't even in the aircraft yet.
Not at all.
The global positioning system, I'm assuming everybody knows what that is. But so we really did rely on a paper map and a compass. But you have to, you know, hit targets in the middle of nowhere at night with you know, very limited resources and, you know, be able to do it every time plus or minus 30 seconds. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, you know, depending on where you're trying to go, that can be a pretty difficult task.
I can just tell you it's hard doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys have a different terrain markers from up there, but you're also flying by it a lot faster, so you're having to keep track of the terrain.
Pretty quickly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it starts with the planning process. You got to pick the right checkpoints, you know, in order to help you find your way. And then you learn the aircraft systems because the aircraft have different systems than the conventional force does. So you got to learn how all that works. Then you got to learn the special tactics like things like fast rope maneuvers and aerial refueling now.
I was going to ask about that.
All of that stuff is all unique to the unit. So you have to learn all that and demonstrate proficiency.
Was
Ship
Black Hawk
landing.
your airframe at the time too, right away?
Well, it was for me. It's different now because it's a pretty expensive aircraft to fly to put all those hours on it. So now they actually start out in little birds, which are the Hughes 500s basically, for all that basic nav stuff, and then they move to the advanced aircraft.
Okay.
So again, all that takes about 10 months. And then again, kind of like Jared said, then you arrive at the unit and you're still nobody because you're the FNG, basically, if anybody knows what that acronym stands for.
It's the one we won't say, but
I
yeah.
mean, there are people that won't even talk to you. I mean, you have not proven yourself. You just because you got through Green Platoon means nothing, right? You have to then make your way through the progression, basic mission qualified, full mission qualified, and then the ultimate level is flight lead.
And I'm assuming Green Platoon actually weeds people out too.
Oh, yeah.
So you have some that are there and they're not there the next day.
Oh, you lose people in assessment. You lose people in all phases of Green Platoon. And then you lose some people once they get to the unit because either the deployment schedule is too much for them or they just aren't performing the way you thought they were going to perform, even though they got through all that. When the rubber actually meets the road, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Was it of any benefit to you at all that you had your Spanish language skills that were already there? I mean,
no, probably
in some special
not.
operations, they want a language skill to be attached to it, but is that necessary at all in aviation?
No, not really. Right. No, I think in that case, it probably didn't help me a whole lot. I mean, the more you know about the more things, it's obviously going to help you in life, but I can't think of a specific example where that helped me out.
So you guys, you said you had some flying with nods and night vision ahead of your time going to Green Platoon and getting into the 160th, but you guys fly with it a lot when you're in the 160th, right? Is that one of the things that differentiates the 160th capabilities, aside from the airframe having some other capabilities too? But is flying with nods a big part of what y'all do?
Yeah, certainly at the time. I would say now there's maybe the focus is broader. I mean, across the entire military.
Yeah.
But the unit was pioneers in night vision goggle flight. I mean, our guys were the ones that came up with the idea. When I went through flight school, we actually flew with what are called full face goggles, meaning they have a frame around them where you cannot see anything other than what you see through the tubes. And we did flights during the daytime with filters on the ends of
the solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Meatloaf Monday, because it's always about the food, right? Well, I tell you what, it's always about the politics too on this show. We talk a lot about not only the politics, but who the people are in the mix on the politics. And one of the most recent names to enter the fray for the U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Alabama's Tommy Tuberville is Morgan Murphy. Morgan Murphy is about to come on the line with us. And just so you know a little bit about him, Morgan Murphy hails from the Birmingham area. He's a former U.S. Navy captain. He was also a senior advisor to both Trump and Tuberville. He was a senior fellow at the America First Policy Institute with degrees from Birmingham Southern and even University of Oxford. That being said, there's an article that came out in 1819 today in which Morgan Murphy weighed in on this very thing we've been talking about, crime in the streets, saying there's no excuse for blue cities and red states to be war zones. We need the National Guard in Montgomery to restore long-awaited law and order. All right. Morgan Murphy on the line right now. Morgan Murphy, how you doing?
Phil, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you making time. In fact, I'll go ahead and confess, I actually texted you at 6:30 this morning and asked if you could come on, and you said yes. So thank you very much.
Man, I'm a Navy guy. I get up early, so no problem at all.
But if you were Air Force, you'd have been sleeping in.
I was doing push-ups when you...
Hey, listen, I want to just kind of touch base on this because the shooting that occurred this past weekend in Montgomery, which for reasons I can't fathom is not getting a lot of national press, 14 people shot, two killed. That's a big deal, and it's right down the street from our state capitol. Your thoughts on the use of National Guard?
I mean, down the street, it's in the shadow. It was 6 blocks from the Capitol. It was 4 blocks from the highest court in Alabama, the Supreme Court, right next to our convention center, and the most beautiful and iconic spot in Montgomery.
Yeah, it's
awful.
It really is awful.
We're desensitized to it as Americans because it's going on everywhere. It didn't make national news because it's going on in Baltimore, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Memphis, in Birmingham. It's in all these blue run cities. And we're just used to it. Sadly, as Americans, in my hometown of Birmingham, just a year ago, we had about the same number of people shot in 5 Points, right, which is 2 miles from my house, 5 Points south.
Wow.
There's 17 injured and 4 killed. And the travesty of that is, Phil, it was one guy. It was one guy, one young kid, 22 years old, who murdered 18 people in Birmingham, Alabama, over a 14-month period. 18 people. This one guy was responsible, allegedly responsible, I have to say for legal purposes, but allegedly responsible for 30% of all the murders in Birmingham that year.
Yeah.
One guy.
Yeah.
And he'd been let out. He'd been let out of jail in 2019. He had shot at a car that was occupied, and they hauled him up in Bessemer, in court in Bessemer. And they let him off on a warning, basically. And within hours of being released in 2019, he was arrested again for illegal firearm possession. And when they released him a second time, he murdered 18 people. To me, we talk about 3 strikes and you're out for criminals. I think we ought to have 3 strikes and you're out for judges. The idiot judge that let these guys go should be held responsible and get off the bench. Your judgment stinks.
Well, that particular judge, by the way, who let him out, if I'm not mistaken, is a judge who prides himself, in his own words, of being a self-avowed liberal and has made more than once inflammatory statements on social media that are unbecoming of any judge who's supposed to be apolitical. And I'm surprised that he's still on the bench right now. But that being said,
the DA was gone too. I mean, it's a mess in Birmingham, and it's a mess in a lot of other blue cities, and we know it's a mess. And as Republicans, Republicans left, have just sort of looked the other way for basically my whole life, for 50 plus years. They've just looked the other way as our beautiful cities have fallen into crime infested war zones. And we all know it, and we all know what neighborhoods not to go into, and to watch ourselves and lock the doors. And it's it's awful when you think Chicago, right, was once the Paris of the plains. When Baltimore was a shining city on the sea, and today, look at them, what a mess. But you talk about the National Guard. I've been working for President Trump and Tommy Tuberville for the past 5 years in Washington D.C., which is not an easy place for a conservative to live. Let me tell you, 93.5% of the city is liberal. The other 6.5% is communist. It's a rough place to be conservative, but I have a condo that's just 6 blocks from the U.S. Senate, and it's a nice place, right? It's in the shadow of the Capitol. And this summer, before Trump called out the National Guard, my neighbor was robbed at gunpoint at 9:40 in the morning.
Wow!
Outside our condominium, and that's typical. It's typical to walk down the street, or it was until the National Guard came in. It's typical to walk down the street, jog past homeless folks every day, jog past people, being arrested, jog past, homeless campments, people sleeping on benches. My son asked if why were all these people camping in front of Union Station, the most beautiful train station in the nation?
Yeah, it really is.
And I had to explain to him, well, son, those are homeless people, and they don't want to go to a shelter because there are rules at a shelter, and they don't want to follow those rules. And Trump came in, and every liberal, howled like they just kicked their grandmother or something. But he came in, and within 2 weeks, crime dropped by 40% in this city, and I cannot tell you the
Go
difference
figure.
is night and day.
It is. I was there not long ago, and it's not like I lived in D.C. when I worked at the Pentagon. I lived in Old Town Alexandria, and I used to go jogging. I used to call them. I used to go for extended long walks. I just wanted to see things that you would see off the beaten path, and just wander around and I'm struck by the fact that I think there's whole swaths of what I used to walk around in just 15 years ago that I don't know that I would do that now. And it's wrong, but I was really struck by when I was
you
there
and I
before.
are big guys, right? We're not petite women walking around. Imagine how they feel.
That's exactly right. But I was struck by the fact that I had an Uber driver who told me things are going pretty good right now. So he was pleased.
Oh, you're right. It's incredible though. It took the president's vision and courage to do it. And just say enough is enough. And I love what he said. He said, my dad told me that if I went into a restaurant and the front door was dirty, that the kitchen was probably dirty too.
Yeah.
And Washington, D.C. is the front door to our nation. Montgomery is the front door to Alabama. We need to clean it up. I'm tired of hearing the excuses. It's been on the left and the right. I'm not blaming one party for it. We've looked the other way for a long time. Basically, the murder rate in Alabama has been stagnant for 75 years. It's been about the same for 75 years. And Trump has come in and said, no, we're just not going to put up with that anymore. 1950, there were 256 murders in Alabama, and last year there were 554. So per capita, the population's doubled. It's about the same. And that's just a shame.
Well, it is a shame. And it's, I think you also pointed, I love the fact that you pointed it out in your article in 1819 this morning. We were quoting you. You said there's no excuse for blue cities and red states. I mean, I get incensed when I see things happening in Portland, Oregon, or in Chicago, Illinois. Well, they've got both state and local leadership that hate Trump. In this case, we're talking about a blue city in a red state. There's no reason why we can't do something more direct.
There's no reason why we can't grab the reins and fix it. It's fixable. Trump has shown that it is fixable. We've heard every excuse in the world, right, about why it's not fixable. Lots of problems. I mean, it's not limited to just crime. But the basic message is we do not have to live like this.
Yeah.
We do not have to put up with this.
Well, listen, I want to spend about 3 or 4 minutes. I try to get my audience an opportunity to hear from everybody who's running for offices that impact them. And in this case, U.S. Senate impacts everybody in the state. You threw your name in the hat about 2 weeks ago. What I would like is, and this is almost sounds like a puff interview, but I'm not trying to do that. I want them to know who you are, though. You spent time in the Navy. You've got time working in policy and in foreign affairs. Give us a quick rundown of you and what got you into the race.
Well, thank you. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. Grew up there, born and raised, and really dreamed of being a writer. So worked for the Birmingham News way back when as an intern, and then got an internship with the New York Post. So that was my first national byline. Went up to New York and worked up there 6 years at Forbes magazine and Vanity Fair, back when magazines had money. People can't believe that now, but they used to. And came back to my hometown to be the travel editor of Southern Living. I was a travel editor and the food critic. So it was like a gravy train with biscuit wheels. And people said, why in the world would you leave that job to go into politics? And I'll tell you why. And I've been a Navy reservist for 26 years. I joined the Navy in 99, deployed to Afghanistan in 2010 and 2011. But when I got back, I noticed just elements of our culture that were amiss. My dad was an Eagle Scout. I was a Boy Scout. Scouting, has lost half its membership in the last 15 years because they've taken the boys out of scouting. I was a lifelong member. 4 generations of my family went to the same church in Birmingham, Alabama, and some your fellow Christian listeners are going to have a stroke when I say this, because my whole family had a stroke when we heard it. But our pastor preached that Jesus Christ was a racist.
Wow.
And we all said, check, please. And left. The Navy, when I joined, was the world's largest Navy, 300 some odd ships. Today it's 285. We're number 2 to China. Last year, China made 900 ships. We made 7. And I just kept seeing these great pillars of our country collapse. Pillars I never thought would collapse. The church, the Boy Scouts, the Navy. And I said, man, if normal people don't go to Washington, if conservatives don't go to Washington and fight this mess, we're going to lose the country. And I came up here in 2020 to work for President Trump. And I worked in the last year of his first term as press secretary of the Department of Defense. I worked with the Secretary of Defense. And what I saw made me even more fearful. That is members of the president's own cabinet, backbiting, undermining, trashing him. I can't, tell you their names, but their initials were General Mark Milley was one of them. And it made me sick. And I watched the media get suppressed. I worked in the media in my first career. I watched my first newspaper, the New York Post, the nation's oldest newspaper, founded by Alexander Hamilton, get stifled during the election for running the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Right.
Facebook, YouTube, Google all suppressed the story. And I was like, this is like living in 1950 Soviet Russia. I couldn't believe it. And so I went to work for Tommy Tuberville. Coach Tuberville just taken office. And Coach and I were both new to the Senate. I never worked in politics before, but we go in there and we expected the left to be crazy. After all, remember back in the day, back in 2021, we were going by 25,000 National Guard troops to get in the office.
Hey, and Morgan, we got about a minute and a half. All right.
Yeah.
We got about a minute and a half, just so you know.
Yeah. It was a really unpopular time to be a Republican. And we were very few MAGA Republicans there. So now it's really popular. And, now that we're back in all 3 branches of government, everybody wants to be Republican. That's great. But I'm worried, and I'm running because I want Coach's strong MAGA voice to remain in the Senate. We've got to have someone who backs the president so that on January 21st, 2029, when President Trump leaves office, the blob in D.C. doesn't just come back and want to do things business as usual.
Yeah. Well, and I totally get all that. So you jumped in the race, and I got about 30 seconds here, but you jumped in the race about 2 weeks ago. And the old saying is a week is a lifetime in politics. There's a lot of weeks between now and the primary. 67 counties. You hitting it hard?
We're hitting it hard. We had a great 2 weeks. I've had 5 endorsements from high-level Trump officials, including Sean Spicer, the former Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, Stacey McFarland, his national security advisor. Really happy to get all of those endorsements, and they're saying we're reliably MAGA. And I think that's what the people of Alabama need to hear before they pick someone who might go into the Senate. Senators tend to stay there a long time, a minimum of 6 years. That's the longest Longest time of any elected official in office.
Well, Morgan Murphy, the music's playing.
know
I
who
mean,
you're offending.
the preacher's got to quit preaching now, but that's me, not you. But the reality is we got to go to break. We're going to have you back on again. Thanks for making time for us today. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, Bill.
All right, take care. That's Morgan Murphy. You want to know more about him? He's got a website. Check it out. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Where the instructor can see, but you can't, because obviously that's the safest way to learn how to fly night vision goggles. But it's really difficult for the person actually flying under those conditions. I think I was actually the last class to ever fly full face goggles and do day filters. I'm not sure, but we made a transition right around that time. But it was guys at the unit who said, "This is stupid. Cut the frame off," right? Because they're originally made for ground use, not air use.
Yeah.
So they cut the frame off and they made them flip up, and there's been evolution after evolution.
They got the big cushion pad around.
Yeah,
and they're like
the full
like
face
this big.
ones. Yeah. They didn't last very long, but that's where it started. Until somebody said, "No, we need to change this," and then they came up with ideas like finger lights and lip lights and infrared lasers and infrared tracers and all these things that you can see with night vision goggles that you can't see with the unaided eye. All were, basically came from that early.
So how much of that training is done by simulators now? Do they do that?
A lot.
Simulation?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Simulators are really good. It was actually part of what I did after,
Pinnacle.
I transitioned out, was working that field. And it's a tremendous cost saver in safety. You can do things in a simulator that are sometimes impossible to do in the aircraft, but certainly safer to do in a simulator. And you can do it cost effectively, because a lot of what's going on in the aircraft today that are advanced is mission management. It's not so much moving the sticks around, it's pushing buttons and understanding how to use the integrated avionics. And you don't need to learn how to do that in a aircraft that costs whatever, $10,000 an hour to fly. Now, I'm not saying you don't need stick time. Okay, that's the trap that some bean counters tend to fall into. That
There's always that seat of the pants feel that
yes,
changes things.
and actually the Army has come to realize that the aircraft they've been using for primary flight training at Fort Rucker now probably isn't the best, because you're not doing enough actual stick flying. There's a lot of automated systems on board that help the aircraft, or help you as a pilot, that you're losing that real ability to fly manually.
Yeah.
And they just did a pilot program where they're going to probably change how flight school is done, because there's been a realization that we got people that don't know how to fly a helicopter. I mean, they can mission manage all day long, but if they have to actually fly a bird, they're not as good as we used to be, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this: what now? The 160th, y'all are balls out a lot. So when you're flying, some of the stuff you're doing are not the things you would do or even be allowed to do in a conventional unit. But then you're also, like you said, you were back in the days when things were being pioneered. And I swear, I think it was you told me one time about strapping a Gatling gun or something to the front of one of the birds just to try it out and see if it would work. And it didn't work very well.
Am
I right in remembering that?
Yeah, I was part of the group that created the ARM Blackhawk.
Okay.
And it's still the only place that it's used is at the 160.
All right.
And yeah, we were running with scissors. I mean, we put a 50 cal, and these things are being mounted just on what was originally intended to be a door gunner pintle mount. So it's not really structurally designed to hold, a fixed forward weapon, but we modified it to where it could. And I mean, we
had
little
duct tape, a little zip tie.
Oh, plenty of duct tape. Yeah, even coat hangers. I mean, you name it, whatever it took. But it was an amazing time to be there, because you could go from sitting in the team room saying, "Man, it would be cool if we could do this," to convincing the leadership that there's some risk here, but we think we can mitigate it. Let's go try it. To then, that worked, writing a requirement and actually getting it turned into something that is fielded, and then go shoot it in combat. I mean, there's probably nowhere else in the world you could say that. And I experienced that on more than one occasion.
So what was the craziest thing you can remember y'all did and thought, man, we're never going to do that again? The one that you sit around at 160th reunions going, remember that time?
Yeah. Well, one of the most amazing stories, and I've told it many times. I like to joke that I shot myself down 5 times, and the most dramatic one, and none of it my fault, but the most dramatic one. So back to this pintle mount with a minigun on it. So a minigun is a 7.62 Gatling gun,
Right.
6-barrel. It'll shoot 6,000 rounds a minute at high rate. Okay, that is incredible. When people see video, like if you go online, you Google minigun night firing, keep in mind all those tracers you're seeing, that's every 14th round. Okay, every 15th round. It's 14-to-1 tracer mix usually. So even though it's a steady stream of tracers, there's 14 more rounds in between each one of those you're not seeing. That's how many rounds are going downrange. So we got one on each side. And the way that
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Hardly any time. I really ran long on that one. I mean, I had JP give me the ugly look. It was like giving me the stink eye because I was going along. You know you were.
It wasn't a stink eye. It was a it was just an eye.
It was that's the kind of thing that makes producers like anxious. We're up against a break.
Listen, I work for Joe Jackson, so you can't make me anxious.
So listen, I got to tell you, I hate cutting people off like that, but we just ran long and I couldn't give him a good closeout. I do want you to know, though, I try to do this for everybody. If you want to know more about Morgan Murphy, who's running for U.S. Senate right now, you can find his website at Murphy. It's MURPHY, Murphy for Senate, which is FOR. murphyforsenate.com. So murphyforsenate.com, go check him out. Like I said before, you got a pretty deep bench. Everyone, by the way, have you noticed that every one of these candidates for that U.S. Senate race on the Republican side comes from an entirely different background, but every one of them is like a eminently qualified background.
All Christian, all strongly conservative. And then, like I said, you got some like Barry Moore and who's got a voting record in Congress, but then you got guys like Jared Hudson who have actively shown, through Covenant Rescue, his willingness to actually get out and do the hard work, like hunting down human traffickers. And then guys like Morgan Murphy, who completely different background himself, but they all have the same strong Christian conservative, foundation. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's good. All right, listen, we're going to come back in a minute. I'm going to finish up this crime in the streets discussion. I got some stuff I want to give you the details on the National Fraternal Order of Police taking issue with Chicago, which, by the way, a minute ago, the reason why I'm doing that is because a minute ago on the news, Chicago is now trying to crawfish and say, we never said that they couldn't respond. It wasn't like that. Well, yes, it really was. Yes, it really was. So we'll just kind of go down that road here in just a minute and talk about it. But in the meantime, just know this: crime in the streets, we're talking about, basically blue policies seemingly excusing crime in the streets simply because they hate Trump. I guarantee you, if Joe Biden said, I'm sending the National Guard, they'd have said, thank you, Mr. President. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Forward mounted them is we called it a diaper pin. It was a pin that went through the pivot, which, because if it's a door gunner, they're going to want to be able to pivot it, right?
Right.
We have to fix that. So we put a brace to hold it vertically, and then we put this pin through the shaft it's rotating on to hold it horizontally. And then it's a diaper pin because it goes around and it has a hook on the end that connects on the end.
Okay,
right?
all right.
Which sounds like that should be sufficient. Well, it is until it isn't. And I'm flying with Donovan Briley, who's a really good friend of mine, lost in Somalia, actually. First aircraft shot down. We're flying. He's in the right seat. I'm in the left. Night vision goggles. We're going in a range at Fort Knox. Live fire. No dry run. We got approval to usually have to make a dry pass to make sure there's nobody out there, but we got approval to go in hot. So we roll in. I'm flying. I pull the trigger, and the tracers are crossing in front of the nose. And so I let off.
That's bad, by the way.
Yeah, I let off
Don't
of the
cross
trigger.
the streams.
And I said, that is the worst expletive bore sight job I have ever seen in my life. So a bore sight is when you orient the weapons to where they're going to impact where the sight is pointing, right? And Donovan, in classic Donovan style, says, Mike, I think we got a problem. So I look over, and I mentioned the finger lights earlier. Finger light is just a little battery-operated LED that is infrared, so you can't see it unless you're wearing goggles. We have some that you can see. This one you could see. And he turns on his finger light, and he points to the windshield. His minigun, that diaper pin can't come out while we were flying to Fort Knox. And when I pulled the trigger, the barrel rotation caused the gun to go left. You would think the wind would cause it to go right, but the barrel rotation caused it to go left.
Force.
And it shot through the cockpit. It missed his knee by like 3 inches. He's got 7.62 rounds all through the cockpit. The windshield's blown out. Glass has been, because I felt something in my eyes, and it turned out it was glass shards from the rounds going through the cockpit.
Mighty Mike.
And again, luckily, it hit. He had a armor panel on the side here, and the barrels hit the front of the armor panel, I think, but it stopped them from going any further, or it would have come right through the cockpit and killed us both. And anyway, we landed, and what I like to say about this story is, this is back when it seemed like we had a little bit of authority to do things that maybe you'd get crushed for today. So I'm thinking about, okay, nowhere in the manual does it say I can't have holes in the windshield to fly this bird. So we put duct tape, back to the duct tape, over the holes in the windshield, cranked it up, and flew it back to Fort Campbell.
No,
today that would probably get you
with your finger off the trigger the whole time.
we emptied the rounds out of the weapons, but that's probably the most dramatic thing that ever happened non-combat.
Yeah.
That I can come up with, and then there were 4 more of those that are less exciting. But
no, that's but yeah, that's definitely one of those you swap over a beer and like, oh no, let me tell the time we shot ourselves down.
Yeah,
that's
so they don't use the diaper pins anymore. By the way.
All right, so op tempo for you, you're in the 160th. Operational tempo is higher than the average unit, I would imagine, but it's a lot of come and go. What's the op tempo like in the 160th?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Again, I was out when 9/11 occurred. I'd retired 6 months prior.
Really?
Made me feel like I was sitting on the bench and considered what I could do to get back in. But with my injuries from Somalia, I couldn't fly operationally anymore. But the reason I bring that up is just to put this in perspective. The rotation for our guys during the War on Terror was 90 days on, 90 days off. So you're in theater 90 days, either Iraq or Afghanistan, you're back for 90, then back in. There are guys who did 30 rotations, 30 in combat. And when I say combat, I mean combat. Yeah. They're hitting multiple targets every night. And there's just no op tempo that's more demanding than that I know of.
That's every one of the airframes. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like making common sense like a superpower. All right, hey, listen, there's a breaking news story that's coming. I'm going to pause the discussion about crime, even though I think this may even kind of be a segue if you get down to it. It's amazing what leftists and Democrats will investigate and then leave aside the real crime. I am not going to excuse everything that happened on January 6th. All right. There were some people who got way out of hand. If things got broken at our Capitol by somebody who claimed to be on the right, it's just wrong. But that being said, 90% of what occurred and who participated on January 6th was not the insurrection that the left tried to make it out to be. It was asinine. And the very fact that they led our country through all that, more asinine on the January 6th Commission. However, a new story just broke. A new story just broke, which, by the way, is now up on and of course, CNN's not covering it. Maybe Trump's talking about it, but they got Trump talking in the White House. On Fox, they've got several senators with the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations giving a press conference. Just so you know, Special Counsel Jack Smith, remember him? Special Counsel Jack Smith was appointed to investigate issues related to the January 6th and all the, whether or not Trump incited insurrection and all that stuff. The bottom line is, oh, you know what? There's Coach at the press conference right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what it's about because Ron Johnson, who
is.
also was part of it, is speaking.
And Marsha Blackburn.
Yep.
Yeah, I just texted. In fact, I just got a text back from one of Tuberville's staff, two of Tuberville's staff. And they said, Coach is at the press conference right now with Grassley and Ron Johnson. And look, on the screen, there he is. So the bottom line is this. We are now learning that Kash Patel, as he continues to wade through the piles of documents and emails that are left behind in his effort to clean up the FBI, Kash Patel has discovered that the FBI, during Jack Smith's investigation, which was labeled Operation Arctic Frost, that was its code name, Operation Arctic Frost, that they were actually tracking the phone calls of U.S. senators, to include Tommy Tuberville and Marsha Blackburn and Ron Johnson and Lindsey Graham. I mean, this is sick. So our own Tommy Tuberville, U.S. senator, soon to be the governor of Alabama, and Marsha Blackburn, same thing, senator of Tennessee, soon to be the governor of Tennessee, I think. They had the FBI tracking their phone calls as sitting U.S. senators, not under indictment, not under investigation. I'm telling you, they were so out of control at the Biden DOJ. It's just sick.
Without a warrant, without anything.
I mean, what did they have? Did they have? I mean, they had to have some grounds. Article says here, and I can't listen, but there's a press conference going live about it right this very minute. The document recently discovered by FBI Director Kash Patel, exclusively obtained by Fox News, is titled the CAST Assistant. CAST stands for the Cellular Analysis Survey Team. The document has the name of agents redacted, but it marks the ID as Arctic Frost, Election Law Matters, Sensitive Investigative Matter, CAST. Okay, this was actually, that's right, this is the investigation as to claims about the election. Okay. The document states the name of the lawmakers and that an FBI special agent on Jack Smith's team conducted preliminary toll analysis on the records associated with the lawmakers. Good Lord.
And a private citizen of Dan Bongino.
And Dan and learned that Deputy Director Dan Bongino was briefing the lawmakers. Now I'm questioning, am I reading this right? Because I can't read. Is it Dan Bongino one of the ones that was being monitored, or is Dan Bongino briefing them now on the fact that they were being monitored? I can't tell from the way the article is written.
I think he may have just been briefing them.
He may have, yeah.
But, this is exactly what the Democrats claim Trump is doing, going after his political opponents. It's like, can you imagine the outrage if it came out that Trump was tapping the phones of like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, Bernie Sanders? Like they were being out, like in physical outcry. Like people would be storming, DC over that on the left.
Yeah, they would.
But that's what they're claiming that the Republicans are doing. But they are doing exactly that. It is projecting.
Well, this is absolutely a mess. And here we are with our own U.S. senator having his phone monitored unbeknownst to him, no warrant, no cause, no probable cause. I mean, what did they have that gave them grounds to do this? Jack Smith, it says, after months of investigating, charged President Trump in the U.S. District Court for Washington, D.C. in the 2020 election case. But after Trump was elected president, Smith sought to dismiss the case, and Judge Tanya Chutkan granted that. That's right. It wasn't, I remember that now. It was the election law matters. Smith's tax, by the way, it also points out in the article that Jack Smith's investigation cost taxpayers $50 million. $50 million. Democrats burned through money like nobody's business. Unstinking believable. So there you go. Just so you know, breaking news. In an effort to, make the nation safer, Special Counsel Jack Smith was tracking the private communications and phone calls of a dozen Republican senators related to his investigation into January 6th and the election law matters. Unbelievable. That's just madness. I'll be honest with you. I'm sitting here, that just ticks me off. I mean, I've said before, as an attorney, but as somebody who's also considered himself to be a constitutionalist, I love the rule of law. And I recognize there will be times when you have to do things like having a warrant or a search or, some manner of attaining the evidence but there has to be probable cause. We're a nation of due process. You are not allowed to have things just happen because, politics. No, it's supposed to be keeping politics at bay. And that's absolutely not what's happening. God, at least during the Biden administration. Unbelievable. On the Safe Streets issue, Joe in Tennessee says, I've decided that Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington are the twin Gazas of the U.S. The federal judges have ruled against Trump sending in troops. Just an observation. Yeah, I did see that. In fact, I'll go ahead and just bring that up. So the president has prepared to bring up the Oregon National Guard, which, by the way, in my second tour downrange, I was in Baghdad attached to an infantry battalion out of the Oregon National Guard. And they were some of the finest soldiers I ever served with. They were amazing. Second of the 162nd Infantry, Oregon National Guard, the volunteers. They were absolutely amazing. I saw somebody, I think it was Jack, I can't say his name.
Jack Posobiec?
Jack Posobiec.
Yes.
That guy.
Yeah.
Say something like, what if the Oregon National Guard turns against the people or something like that? Yeah. And I said, I served with them in Baghdad. Ain't going to happen.
Outside of like Portland and the big cities.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon is just like most states. It's conservative.
And that's a good point. Same thing with New York.
Yep.
There's a lot of upstaters that hate downstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of eastern half of Oregon that hates the coastal plains of Oregon. California's got a lot of red. All right. Anyway, Fox News points out October 6th, Dateline today, federal judge has now blocked Donald Trump's efforts to deploy National Guard troops to Portland. U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut ruled the action was unlawful, unconstitutional, issuing an emergency temporary restraining order to halt the deployment of California's National Guard. The order also bars the use of troops from any other state or Washington, D.C. in Oregon. I mean, anyway, it's just one thing after another. Oregon's Scott Kennedy said it felt like a game of rhetorical whack-a-mole, referencing reports that Trump might be considering sending the Texas National Guard. Listen, the bottom line is this. If you do it yourself, we don't have to come. We don't want to be there either. I mean, the federal government doesn't want to be there. They don't want to have to send plussed up troops. They don't want to activate National Guardsmen and uproot them from their daily lives. They don't want to do it. That Trump would much rather not do it. But what he's saying is, in the absence of law and order at the local level, Title 10 of the U.S. Code gives him the authority to do that, and he will. He's proven it. He's done it multiple times, and the Dems cry foul every time. And yet, the governor of Louisiana just the other day asked the president to please let him activate National Guard. There you go. By the way, I've got articles here that point out that the rank and file are getting sick to death of what's happening. Washington, D.C., Dateline yesterday. Fox News again. Washington, D.C. police officers are alleging to the Justice Department that superiors in the Washington PD, the D.C. PD, misclassified crimes in order to make their crime stats look less serious. Please. 36 rank and file officers and detectives have now lodged complaints with the DOJ as the city faces an investigation. In August, President Trump deployed the National Guard, citing a need to combat the crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor. Trump declared the effort will go further. And now we have Metro PD members that are saying it's even worse than you think because we got leadership that's been cooking the books on the stats. And then you got this one, Chicago. This is Fox News again. I got one here from the Federalist, but I'll go to the Fox first. The National Police Union. So the National FOP, and I cited this briefly earlier, but I got to bring it back to it. The National FOP is ticked, like tired of it. Like rank and file law and order police are saying, would you just let us do our jobs? How can you possibly stop us from doing our jobs? Well, details are emerging, but it appears that officers from the Chicago Police Department were ordered not to assist a group of ICE agents who were being physically threatened by an angry mob. Let me be clear, said the National FOP president. The National FOP and the Illinois FOP believe that when an officer calls for assistance, you answer no matter what. They cited the Illinois Trust Act, which limits local police involvement in immigration enforcement, and said that it is contributing to a breakdown between local and federal law enforcement, particularly in sanctuary cities like Chicago. Yeah, you think? listen, the end result of these blue policies is someone's going to die.
Hey, can I just ask one quick question before we go to break?
Go ahead.
What it's the judge issued a temporary restraining order to keep the National Guard out.
Yeah.
Is there a way, like, obviously Trump is going to appeal that.
Yes.
Is there a way for Trump to just disregard that in the meantime, knowing that he's going to appeal it? Or does he have to abide by that and then appeal and then wait before he sends them?
No, I think he has to abide by it and appeal. He has to abide by it and appeal, but he can ask for an expedited appeal. So this is going to have to go to an appellate level at the that's going to be the Ninth Circuit, I think. But the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is going to hear it, and then it can go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Because, like, I know tariffs are ruled unconstitutional by two courts, and it's going to the Supreme Court, but the tariffs have stayed in place in the meantime. So I didn't know if there was a way for Trump to continue to do what he does, or what he's doing with the National Guard, and wait for an appeal, or if he has to.
You're going to have to get the injunction lifted for him to go forward, I believe. Otherwise, he's acting outside of the law at that point because he's been ordered not to. There's an old saying that the most powerful person in the world is a federal district court judge, because they're the only ones who can actually order the president of the United States to do something. Everybody else after that is just an appeal of what that federal district court judge did. So if you want some clout, baby, you get appointed to the federal bench at the district court level. Don't go to the appellate. Don't go to the Supreme Court. All you do there is just deal with what happened down below you. You're ruling on a matter of first impression or a case of adequate jurisdiction at the lower court level. You're the only one who can demand the president do something. The rest of them just deal with whether or not you were right. Kind of crazy.
It's sad.
It is sad. It's sad. Well, it's sad in some cases.
Well, it's sad when it gets abused.
That too.
Yeah.
I got a few more on this. We'll wrap it up. We get back from this break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Chinooks, Blackhawks.
Yeah, the Chinooks were the stars of Afghanistan, actually, because of the elevation.
Yeah.
Which was a real struggle for the Little Birds and even the Blackhawks. But Iraq was pretty much more a Blackhawk Little Bird show.
Yeah.
With certainly a lot of Chinook missions as well. But yeah, all the platforms.
Yeah, I was in my tour in Afghanistan was the beginning of the war, riding horses and stuff. But we were in the northern parts, north of the Hindu Kush, and so both Bagram and Kandahar down south couldn't get to us by rotary wing because getting over the top of the Hindu Kush was too much for most of the airframes they flew.
Yep.
And the only couple of times something happened where somebody came in from the south, I think they were flying Chinooks.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a beast. I mean, it really is.
It's a freaking school bus with rotors on top.
Yeah, we call it a dump truck, but I love it. Yeah, it's a great aircraft.
But I've seen images of. I mean, some of those guys that fly in the Chinooks, it's amazing. They can balance on a dime. But they literally, one guy was with the ramp down in the back was hovering in the air, exiting troops onto a mud hut on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, there's a famous picture from Afghanistan. That's probably it.
Yeah.
The front wheels are off in space, with hundreds of feet below. Yeah.
So you had some major deployments. Operation Prime Chance, which a lot of folks don't realize, is defending tankers that were flagged American and making sure they're safe.
Our friends, the Iranians, who
they're in the news again.
They've I don't even know what to say about them. It's just they've been a constant problem for 50 years, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because the Israelis are just to the point where they had to do something, and they did.
Yeah, and I think most of the world is glad they did. At the same time, holding their breath that they did.
Right.
But Operation Just Cause, so you're back in Panama again, and you went in with the 160th on that too, right?
Right. We did. We were there for 8 hours. So when the F-117 dropped the first bomb ever at Rio Hato, I was down there underneath watching it. It was pretty amazing.
Flying over places you've been to in the past, right?
Yeah. Some of the subsequent missions, there's where I used to live, and we're putting SEAL Team 6 in on targets around the city, trying to find, because Noriega was still on the run at the time. That our mission was to capture him. That was it.
Yeah.
And we called it the hunt for Elvis, because there was always an Elvis sighting somewhere, and usually it was bogus, but if it met the intel criteria, we'd go. And so we were flying all over the place.
And then Desert Storm. also. Also with 160th, obviously all your deployments there with 160th, but what was the mission in Desert Storm? Was it scud hunting or what?
It was, yeah. So the scuds, for those who don't recall, the concern was Saddam was launching scuds into Israel,
right,
which potentially would draw Israel into the fight, which would break up our coalition, because our coalition had Arab countries along with Western countries as part of a unified force. But if the Israelis got involved, the concern was that would fall apart. So it was a huge issue to stop Saddam Hussein from firing scuds into Israel. So we were putting Delta Force on the ground in Western Iraq to try to find these launchers. And then we actually found some ourselves. And I was fortunate enough to put the first rounds on one.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
With an armed Black Hawk?
With an armed Black Hawk.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Take it out?
So in the end, they think it was a decoy. But there's a photo of it in this. I don't know if you've ever seen these books. Like there's an Army one, a Navy one, Air Force. There's a SOCOM book. They're big format, like coffee table books. Yeah. In that book for SOCOM, there's a picture of my FLIR. If you look at that picture, I don't care who you are, you're not going to think that's a decoy. I mean, so FLIR is forward-looking infrared. For those who don't know what that acronym is, it's heat sensitive, basically. You can see heat on the wheels. I mean, it looks real. I mean, this thing absolutely looks real. And then you can see the minigun rounds sort of hitting on the way up into but it didn't blow up. And we had a Scud expert back at the operations center when we got back, and he said, you're really lucky it didn't blow up, because if it blows up, it's like the space shuttle going off, because there's so much propellant in there.
Oh, wow.
And we were pretty close. We were probably within 200 meters when we broke.
Oh, wow.
Break meaning you're diving, you're shooting, and then you break. And he said if you would have blown it up, it probably would have taken you out. So, okay. Glad it
take
didn't
that
blow
all
up.
day long.
Yeah.
You still get credit though, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
And then there's Operation Gothic Serpent, which is heading into Somalia. Became known as the Battle of Mogadishu. A lot of your book, of course, and rightfully so, is focused on that mission. I want to dive into that for a bit. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, let's wrap up this section, but we can break back into it anytime. I mean, crime in the streets. There will be crime. Every community has it. Even Mayberry had a jail, right? I mean, it may have not been very occupied, but Mayberry had a jail. Why? Because there's going to be crime everywhere, and I get that. But when you see crime having, like pandemic levels, when you see like what happened in this past weekend in Chicago. So you got Chicago saying, we don't want the federal government. We can't have that. We don't want them here. Well, you just had 22 shootings and 4 murders in the last weekend. 22 shootings, 4 murders in the last weekend. Let that sink in. And yet, nonetheless, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson went ahead and signed an executive order banning ICE operations on city property because, can't allow that to happen. What does that mean? That means, I guess, your illegal aliens that work in City Hall wouldn't get arrested is what you're saying? I got news. If ICE needs to come into your City Hall, they're gonna. And let's hope they don't have to. And you know what? They shouldn't have to. That's it just occurred to me. I'm arguing against something that shouldn't even be an argument. That's like saying, well, if the thief hides over there, we're not going to let it. What? And then you got things like this. Portland. You know what? There are places in the world you couldn't pay me to vacation. One of them is Portland, Oregon right now. And by the way, Oregon's a beautiful state. Now, I will vacation in the Cascades. I'm fine with that. I would love to go see some of the guys that I served with who live in Eastern Oregon. I would love that. I wouldn't mind going to a Ducks game. I'd be cool with that. But Portland, you can have it, man. Not until they change their leadership. Portland police, according to the Federalist, Dateline 3 days ago, Portland police are protecting violent leftist organization Antifa while ignoring or punishing the victims of their violence. This happened. Nick Sortor, the guy who does independent journalism, I watched the video of this. Did you see it?
I did.
He's being assaulted by an Antifa protester. He has to pull out his pepper spray and spray the person who is literally attacking him. Pepper sprays him. He gets arrested
for disorderly conduct.
He's literally on the street just asking questions, doing nothing but what the media does. He gets assaulted. He gets arrested. That's the way it's working right now in places like. By the way, the other thing that I saw too was in Portland. Is it Portland? I think it is. No, or is it? No, it's Portland. They have some of the frontline, quote unquote, law enforcement are what they call engagement officers. They have no arrest authority. They're just allowed to talk to people. What if you're a bad guy who already doesn't care about the law and somebody walks up and goes, "Excuse me, sir, you need to stop that." "Oh, you an engagement officer?" "Well, yes, I am. Get away from me."
Yeah, it's like when a mall cop tries to arrest you. Sorry, don't mean to offend any mall cops that may be listening, but it's like, yeah, like what authority do you have?
I did have a mall cop one time totally offended me.
Really?
Yes. It's a story.
I'm sure it is.
I'm in the Gadsden Mall. I'm standing there. I was a youth minister. And I'm talking to one of my kids. And we're just standing there talking. And the mall cop, who's a little bitty guy, walks up to me and goes, "Move along, please." And I didn't say anything because I thought sure he wasn't talking to me. And I was just talking to one of my kids. And I'm just, "Sir," I said, "move along. Move along." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "You need to move along." I said, "Why am I moving along?" And now I'm in this weird dynamic where I want to model well in front of this kid. and yet I've got this guy who's like wearing the tin badge and pushing me around like Barney Fife.
Like Paul Blart.
I mean, he's like, it's like his head comes up to my chin and he's like looking up at me going, "Move along." And I'm like, why is Frodo telling me to move along?
It's like an engagement officer.
Yes, exactly.
Excuse me.
And I said, "Sir, I'm actually buying things in the mall and I'm talking to my friend and I'm a 35-year-old man. I think I'm doing okay."
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, I just need you to move along." I said, "We will move along momentarily." And he didn't know what to do and he walked away. I'm sorry. Why did we chase that rabbit? That's your fault.
That is my fault. My apologies.
All right, that's enough of that topic. We're going to come back and talk about America Rising. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Because that's the one. I mean, your situation in the Battle of Mogadishu took you out of running in obscurity in terms of your personal name and thrust you into the eyes of the entire world. And I remember that. I remember when that happened. It was amazing to see it. But for those who don't recall, Operation Gothic Serpent, the intro into Mogadishu for the United States actually started under George H.W. Bush.
Correct.
But it transitioned in early 93 when Clinton took office.
Correct.
So you were there during Clinton's era, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Clinton took office in January 93. Task Force Ranger is the name of the U.S. presence, I guess, at the airfield there. And then in October, was it October 3rd, I think? October 3rd, 93, launched what many people just refer to as Black Hawk Down because that's the book and the movie. And I guess code word Irene was what launched the mission, right?
It was.
Which my secretary downstairs at the law firm, her name is Irene. I told
really?
her one day, I said, "I don't know if you're aware of the use of your name in modern pop culture." And she went, "I've never heard that." So anyway.
And actually, that's my character that says it in the movie.
That is your character. Yeah. And I want to talk about the movie and all that too at some point, just to get your thoughts on it. But Rangers have the mission of going in and securing some high-value targets, or securing the scene so that Delta can secure the high-value targets. You're part of the flight in. Who were you bringing in, by the way?
So I was the flight lead, which means I'm responsible for my whole flight of aircraft. of the Ranger blocking force. So it's basically split into two pieces. We had the assault force, which is where the Delta guys are. They're primarily on little birds.
Yeah.
And they're going to go in first because they want the element of surprise. They want to be, busting doors down before, with limited amount of time to react, right? If you put the blocking force in first, then you bring the assault force in, the bad guys have a little bit more time to react. So they're going in first. We're right behind them. So as soon as their birds pull out, we're moving in. And I had 4 Blackhawks that made up the blocking force, plus 2 spare attack little birds, plus the search and rescue bird. So we're all coming in together on the second wave, basically. And we just set up a box. I mean, all they want is put a Ranger platoon on each corner, and the purpose is twofold. One, keep more bad guys from getting in, and then obviously we call them leakers, keeping the people you're after from getting out. And that all went pretty smoothly, even though we'd done it 6 times before. This was the 7th mission.
Right.
And, we had tremendous success. We had captured, I think, 27 people on a list of 50, taken no casualties of any significance. We didn't lose any birds. I mean, it was all going pretty well. There were 3-day missions and 3-night missions leading up to that. And this 7th mission is a day mission, which created some risk factors that we knew about, but, not my call.
Part of the job.
But yeah, the commander makes the call.
Right.
They're within tolerance, I guess you could say, and when we go, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, it got crazy on the ground pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
I know we had one Ranger injured on the fast rope end, and that created the scene. And then I guess the all call went out, and it seemed like everybody in Mogadishu had an AK-47, and they all ran to the scene.
And that was their strategy, which we found out later. They actually had set up a system where once they knew where we were hitting the target, and again, they learned this over time, right? When I talk about this, I try to compare it to sports, right? If you keep running the same play, the defense is going to adapt to that play, right? They understand, okay, this formation means this is what they're going to do, so here's how we counter that. It works the same way in the military. And so having done it 6 times, they obviously understood, okay, the helicopters all go to a target. That's where, they're going to put people on the ground. They're going to try to apprehend folks. If we can pin them in there, then, we might have some chance of
Plus, they were blocking roads, so the ground convoy was having trouble.
Yep. So we found out after that was their strategy. Once they knew where the target was, they were all going to close on it, and it worked pretty well, actually.
Well, the Blackhawks stayed on station. In fact, one thing I've never known is what was the purpose of y'all? If there's going to be a ground convoy for the exfil, what was the purpose of y'all remaining on station like you did?
So we kept 2 attack little birds and 2 Blackhawks over the target for fire support. So the little birds, they've got miniguns and rockets,
right?
And they're going to be slightly further out in terms of their restricted fire areas. Where the Blackhawks were being used, and honestly, hindsight being 2020, it wasn't a great way to do this, and it's not being done anymore, at least not in urban environments. They were being used for both the miniguns, which I don't think they used the miniguns a lot, but they had snipers on board. So it's a great stable platform for the shooter, but it's a 50-something foot long target for people on the ground that have weapons. Mm-hmm. And you can't fly fast, because if you're flying fast, your shooter can't hit anything. So the speed is less than what you would fly if you were, just trying to avoid fire. We're probably flying 50 knots, right? Which may seem fast to someone on the ground, but that's really slow for an aircraft. Mm-hmm. And it makes the aircraft much more vulnerable to ground fire.
And how far above ground were you?
Very low. I mean, the Blackhawks had to stay 150 feet and below. Okay. And the little birds, I think, were 300 feet and above, which worked out great. I mean, we'd done it, at that point, probably 50 times counting rehearsals, and never had any close calls in terms of mid-airs.
Were you just flying racetracks?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we had, when I was in Baghdad in 2004, I can remember being on a cordon and search mission in Sadr City area, and they had changed all the TTPs because the racetracks got predictable, apparently, for ground fire, and so they were flying figure eights, and they were also altitude changes, and they had gone through all kinds of machinations to try and make sure the bad guys on the ground didn't have a predictable means of assessing, where the flight was going to be.
Right. Now my flight, because I'm not one of these 4 aircraft over the target. I've already gone in and I put my guys on the ground, but I took my flight north of the city for exactly what you're talking about. And one of the guys criticized me. You know, he said, "Hey, we need to stay closer to target so we can see what's going on." And I'm like, "No, we're a contingency force at this point. I'm going north of the city where there's no threat, because if we're just doing circles up there, why would I want to be right here in the middle of this fight and put our entire flight at risk?" And it was obviously the right decision to do what I decided to do. So I've got my flight and I'm north of the city. Now, north of the city is not a long distance. It's probably
Oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Meatloaf Monday. Oh, yeah, Meatloaf Monday, because it's always about the food. All right, that is the hour that we are in, and I got a ton of text messages to catch up on. And you got some over there on social media, too. What do you got on your end?
We got a super chat here from Pastor
super
Dave.
chat.
Pastor Dave says, when the love of God grows cold, the love for one another also grows cold, and lawlessness grows rampantly. I try to tell myself we're battling spiritual forces. It's hard to keep that mindset.
That's a great point. And you know what? I had an interesting conversation. Thank you, Pastor Dave. That's Pastor Dave, right?
Pastor Dave with the $10 super chat.
Hey, $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Pastor Dave. So, I had an interesting conversation the other night on CNN with Van Latham. And, you know, we differ wildly on politics. I'll be honest with you. He's a nice guy off the air. We had a interesting conversations on the way out together and stuff. But on the air, we had a conversation about the love of God. We did. And we talked about it in terms of what's happening in our culture right now. And I will be honest with you, Van is notorious for taking the subject down a rabbit hole, right? So we weren't even necessarily on that. He was beginning to kind of trail off into rabbit holes. But he started trying to say that if you can't, basically acquiesce to someone else's truth, and I'm paraphrasing big time, but that's kind of where he was.
That's what
what he was saying is, the transgender kid having to hide from his parents and the yada, yada. And I said, my point to him was, you are implying that the love of God would not also be allowed to have standards. You're allowed to have, when my kids were growing up, if they were doing something wrong, it never changed my love for them. It was unconditional, but it did not mean I didn't tell them they were wrong. And I did not try to provide corrective action when necessary. And granted, there's a fine line. What is corrective action? Okay, you don't want to abuse somebody, obviously, but that's not what we're talking about. And so the left believes that love is only unconditional if there are no conditions attached.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
But the actual level of unconditional love means, sure, there can be consequences, but it won't change the fact that I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you have that in place, then you have a well-ordered society, to Pastor Dave's point. How did he word it? It's hard to keep that mindset, and lawlessness grows rampantly so the love for one another also grows cold when the love of God grows cold. So all right, to your point too, I think that also is a great implication. We have to keep faith at the forefront.
Yeah.
So Pastor Dave, thanks.
And Van he's almost there. Like, he's one of those, like, he started off his statement by saying, he believes in God. He's afraid, what God sees when he looks at, like, you can see the way he talks. He's open to the, belief in God, and maybe has a belief in God, but not fully committed to, the Christian beliefs or whatever. Yeah. I see some people, they're just cold to the soul, it seems like, but he, the way he talked, I think there's hope for Van.
I would agree. I do. And like I said, nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
We just differ politically. I gotta catch up on text messages. Karen from Lawrence County, Alabama, texted in earlier about that Montgomery shooting and said, "Is that the same Renaissance Hotel where the state GOP has its meetings?" Yes, it is. It's the same Renaissance Hotel where I've been to multiple conferences, stayed overnight. And also it's where I even took the bar exam. Believe it or not, they use the giant ballroom there for the bar exam. So yes, it is. Jeff from Indiana said way back earlier in the show, he said, Phil, if the candidate for AG would have said this about the president, he'd be getting a visit from the Secret Service. No doubt. What he's talking about there is the Democrat candidate for Attorney General in the state of Virginia is on his heels right now because it was discovered that he sent just some of the most awful text messages about wishing that he could shoot the Speaker of the House in the head. and then, his wife and children also be killed. Just there's no excuse. He's being called on now to drop out of the race, but Democrats are rallying behind him and saying he's still going to stay in.
Yeah, like Democrats are saying, I support Jay Jones, period. It's like, okay, what does that say about you?
By the way, he didn't try the old, I was hacked and that's not really me.
Yeah, because he knows if he's got support from his Democrat buddies, obviously. So he's just got to say he's sorry and then move on, which is sad.
Yeah, it is. Chris from Rogersville checked in on the Montgomery shooting in which 14 people were shot, 2 others were killed. He says, you know why it's not a national news story? It doesn't fit the agenda. That may be true. I don't know, but that may well be true. Cameron from Decatur said, I grew up in Montgomery. It used to be a nice place. Now I feel bad for my friends and family who have to live there. I feel like the best thing I ever did for my family was move. So sad. Well, and then they wonder, listen, when I was in Montgomery in the state Senate, we worried about not for our own safety. We worried about things like it's our state capital. I mean, it's the window to our state from people coming from the outside to meet with the seat of government. And it's also, by the way, where Maxwell Air Force Base is. Maxwell Air Force Base is literally about 10 minutes. No, less than that. 5 minutes from where this shooting took place. Now, when I was down there, because I have, military ID, a lot of times I would stay on Maxwell Air Force Base in the officers' quarters. I'd get a senior officers' quarters. I liked it because once you drove inside the gate, it's like you were in an oasis. You pulled through the gate, it was like suddenly you're in small town America. Leave it to Beaver. Everything neat and trim and nice, and you stayed overnight and got a breakfast in the DFAC and came on. Anyway, I used to eat at the golf course on the Maxwell all the time. But there's been talk about, Maxwell is the schoolhouse for the Air Force. That's where all the enlisted and senior officers go for their actual education. There's been talk about pulling it because of the crime rate in Montgomery and the schools.
Well, it really gives you encouragement when Stephen Reeve put a written statement in response to Kay Ivey saying that it's actually the lax gun laws in Alabama that caused the shooting.
Whatever.
It's like when you have the mayor speaking like that, it makes you a little bit discouraged.
The law-abiding citizens who own firearms are not the issue.
Yep.
Just saying. Clint from Tony, Alabama says, Phil, I just saw a social media post from a retired law enforcement officer that from that neck of the woods. He posted a transcript of radio traffic telling Chicago PD to stand down and gave no assistance to the ICE agents. I saw that. And thank you for bringing that back to my attention. Yeah, for those who are wondering, yes, there was a story that the National Fraternal Order of Police is incensed because Chicago PD was ordered to stand down and not respond to ICE units who were being threatened by a mob, ICE officers. And here's a copy of it. I'm assuming this is real. I can only assume, but it's a copy of the message traffic. Chief of Patrol, no units will respond to this as related from, and then it has call signs and all that kind of stuff. Wow. And it even says approximately 30 armed Border Patrol agents are being surrounded by a large crowd of people and requesting CPD assistance. And they were told no units will respond. My God. Mark from Tony, Alabama says Nancy planned January 6th. Okay. Thank you. If you have a smoking gun on that, please let me know. What do we got here? This came from, who'd this come from? Looking for a Democrat that loves our country is like trying to find a Tootsie Roll in a septic tank. Oh my word. I don't even want to think about that too hard. That was JT Lacey Springs. Thank you very much. Dana from Athens says, why do these judges think the rule of SCOTUS doesn't matter? They're finding workarounds. They are finding workarounds. It's not always the same exact thing. And the judges are not defying SCOTUS. They're just going places SCOTUS hasn't quite gone yet. So there's that. Brian from Decatur, what happens if ICE people are injured or killed? Can Trump then act regardless of the court order? Okay, hang on a second. If ICE agents are injured or killed in the line of duty, I can't, I think it's going to be, and I hate to say this, but in the military, we say situation dictates. Your situation dictates. If a mob surrounds an ICE caravan, assaults the ICE officers, one of them is killed, I guarantee you Trump's sending in reinforcements and he could care less what the city officials say. And he will declare an emergency. If if we have a situation where ICE is attacking a federal facility like an ICE detention facility or a federal courthouse like they've done, then Trump can reinforce that without permission. It's considered federal property. If you just have crime on the streets like murders in certain neighborhoods and all those kinds of things, Trump is probably not going to be sending in the guard, in defiance of the court order. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I think I did. Michael from Arab, I'm cleaning them up here. Michael from Arab says, I believe the president needs to fire AG Pam Bondi. Really? Why? He said, all the things Biden and the deep state have done to Trump and nobody has went to jail or even been tried in court. Michael, come on, man. You know how much it takes to be able to put together an investigation and hold a grand jury and get an indictment? The man's been in office for what, 8 months? It doesn't work that way. And the idea that you want something to happen now, well, that's called kangaroo court. You're not going to get there and not. He said, I think Bondi's part of the deep state. Okay, Michael, come out of the conspiracy websites. No, that's not true. You're actually literally not looking at the bigger picture. You're like choosing not to. And I appreciate the fact that you want something to happen. A lot of us do. I'm also thinking you're going to start seeing it happening, especially since you saw Comey indicted most recently. But don't believe for a second that Pam Bondi came in because she's part of the deep state. She wasn't even in D.C. until now. Matt from Madison says, no consequences leads to no respect and no regard for others or law, and order leads to anarchy where we find ourselves today. In some places. Mike from Coxey says, Colonel Phil, Ecclesiastes 8:11 is being played out right before our eyes. Quote, because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Wow, that's interesting. You know what? I'm in Ecclesiastes right now, and I'm not at chapter 8 yet. I'm just going back through it, so I'll be dialing in on that one. Last one, Shag Nasty the Atheist. Pray tell, Shag, what have you got for us? He says, please, more conservative infighting on conspiracies. There's no infighting. I just told him no. All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll come right back, and I'm going to jump on to some America Rising. I think you're going to like this. And we're going to talk about several things to include who in God's name is Bad Bunny. We'll be right back.
And we're up there orbiting basically on standby. I mean, when you got assets like that, if you could keep them on hand as a ground force, yeah, keep them on hand, right? Because you never know when you might need some kind of helo support. And then I get called back in when the first Black Hawk gets shot down.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you were flying what, Super 6-4?
Right.
And Super 6-1, your friend Donovan, right?
Right.
So he's the first one to go down.
And Cliff Walcott.
Yeah, and Cliff Walcott. And then you were, I think you were directed in to replace him.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we didn't have a sniper on board. So we're going in simply to use our minigun down close to try to provide fire support for the guys on the ground. That's what our mission has now become, which that was not our mission prior to that. But again, you adapt and you do what needs to be done to try to help the force that you're supporting.
And you've got a full crew?
4, yeah. 2 crew chiefs and 2 pilots.
All right, so Super 6-1 is down. What do you remember about Super 6-1, hearing it over the air, and recognizing that one of them's already down?
Yeah, I mean, I've always called myself an eternal optimist. It never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Cliff and Donovan would be dead. I just assumed that, they took a round, they're going down, they're going to land the aircraft somewhere, we'll get them recovered, and we'll all go debrief this thing when this is over. But obviously now we've lost a bird, which is the first time that this happens for us. There had been another Black Hawk shot down by 10th Mountain Division previously with some fatalities, but it wasn't our unit. And it, I've always used the phrase big sky, little bullet. You don't think it can necessarily happen to you until there's enough volume of fire where it's going to happen to you. And there's also a search and rescue bird shot down in the middle of all this that then heightens that even more, because now they've shot down 2 aircraft in about 5 minutes, and we're going into this fray. This is getting real, really fast. And, I remember telling the crew chiefs, because I've got control of their guns from up front. So I've got an arming switch. And I armed the guns, and I said, okay, you're armed, but we got friendlies all over the ground down here. So we can't go in here just blasting away. When we see bad guys, we got to get situationally aware so we know where all of our forces are before you start launching 6,000 rounds a minute downrange.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in an urban environment, I don't want to say it's impossible, but right on the rooftops, it's really difficult to sort all that out. Because first of all, they're all taking cover. So, they're not standing out there waving at you. They're all taking cover. So trying to figure out where everybody was would have probably taken us a while. In the end, we only made it around 3 times when we got nailed by an RPG.
So RPG to the tail rotor, right?
Right.
In the movie, and later I want to get your thoughts on the movie, like I said, but in the movie, there's a scene where you took the RPG to the tail rotor. But initially, you thought it was going to be okay until you started getting some play in the pedals and stuff like that. So, what were your first thoughts, and how did that? I mean,
well, I knew we were hit, and I always tell people if you want to know what it feels like, drive too fast in a parking lot and hit a speed bump. That's what it felt like. It felt like a jolt to the airframe because you don't see it. Usually, what they were doing is they let us fly by, and then they emerge from the doorway and shoot. So. You're probably not going to see the launch. The crew chief might see it depending if they're looking in the right direction. And then the reason they hit both of us in the tail is they're not leading us enough. So that 50-knot magical speed was just ballistically perfect for them to shoot at I'm sure they were aiming for center mass.
Which the crazy thing is an RPG is not usually designed to take out aircraft.
No, I mean, but if you fire enough of them, eventually, they say they fired 150 at us on that mission. Now, not just at me, but on that mission. That's how many RPGs.
I never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they went all in. They thought we want to bring down a helicopter, and they were successful. So anyway, back to your question. Initially, I feel like I hit a speed bump, knew we were hit. I can see the airfield. It's 2 miles ahead of us. And looking in the cockpit, everything's okay. Controls are all responding. But what had happened was the gearbox had been blown apart, and it's like a transmission in your car, right? If you blow your transmission apart,
you ain't going anywhere.
Not for very long. Once those gears run without oil for any period of time, they're going to self-destruct, and that's what happened. And then when the tail rotor left the aircraft, again, that's impossible to describe. If you haven't experienced it, I can't describe it. I mean, it's this violent spin of the aircraft, out of control.
What do they call that? Counter rotation or something, where you're trying to restore. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, listen. All right, JP, help me out. Who is Bad Bunny? Who is this guy?
I hate to break it to you. I'm not going to be much of help here.
You know what? I'm kind of glad.
Yeah.
So what little I know about Bad Bunny leads me to believe that he is not necessarily what I would call the people's choice for the halftime show of the Super Bowl, but that's where he's going to be.
He's some people's choice, not majority people's choice.
I've never seen this before, but I've never seen it where there are people actually talking about staging alternative halftime shows, like out in the parking lot or nearby, where you can leave the stadium and come back. And they're trying to figure out if they can do it or not, because this guy is not. I mean, the vast majority of people who can afford tickets to go see the Super Bowl are not there to see Bad Bunny.
No.
All right. So if you're not familiar, Bad Bunny, was he a rapper?
He's a musician.
Pop music?
Pop, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Cross-dresser?
Yeah. Cross-dresser. He, there was a lot of speculation from fans if he was gay himself, but he says that he identifies as heterosexual, but he embraces sexual fluidity.
Stop it.
So
he's also, where is he from? Puerto Rico? Where is he from originally?
I don't know.
All right. All I know is he's Hispanic, Latino, from some derivation. I don't know where. He was on Saturday Night Live the other night as the Saturday Night Live special guest. Did the opening monologue, told the world He said several things in Spanish and said, if you didn't understand what I just said, you got 4 months to learn, meaning I'll be entertaining in Spanish, I guess, at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he will be, all of his songs will be in Spanish essentially. And he is from Puerto Rico, by the way.
That's what I thought.
He's technically, I mean, he's an American citizen, but
yeah,
doesn't act like one. And he is from Puerto Rico originally.
And he was pretty controversial early this year because he's been calling out the Trump administration on ICE, right?
He actually did not include any American events on his tour because of ICE.
Because of ICE.
He claims that he's scared of, like, he doesn't want to give ICE an opportunity, I guess, to go after his fans. Kristi Noem actually said that DHS may be at the event
at the Super Bowl
to try to get the Bad Bunny fans. But I mean, it's frustrating because when he goes on SNL, he's mocking Americans.
Yeah,
saying, "Well, you got 4 months to learn Spanish for my Super Bowl halftime show." The NFL could care less about America and Americans because you can see that they're constantly having more games overseas. Weekly now, they have games overseas. They want to have a Super Bowl outside of America one day, Roger Goodell claims. So they could care less about Bad Bunny, being derogatory to Americans. They just see him as a global icon outside of America. And then now Bad Bunny and the NFL can use America as a footstool to, get fans and get eyeballs outside of the U.S. It's really frustrating and very annoying.
They've literally picked somebody who does not appear to be fond of America at all.
He's not.
Who does not embrace America's heritage, so to speak, and is on the way out there on the woke fringe, and actually looks like a character from the Hunger Games. I mean, he looks like somebody who'd be sitting in the stands yelling at the participants of the Hunger Games and saying, "May the odds be ever in your favor." That's what he looks like. He's a complete flamer, and that's who they chose to be the halftime show.
I mean, there's no other way to put it other than this is the NFL spitting on America and Americans from getting somebody to do their halftime show who is openly mocking America and Americans because they could care less. They could care less about, I mean, the NFL wouldn't be what it is today without American teams and Americans watching their product. Bad Bunny, I mean, he wouldn't be what he is today without America. So it's kind of
great point.
It's ironic for them to openly mock and spit on America and Americans when they wouldn't be where they are, neither the NFL or Bad Bunny without America.
Well, when we get back from this break, which I think is coming like any time now, but when we get back from this break, I got a minute?
Yeah.
Keep talking.
That's all I got to say.
I looked at the clock and I thought we were there.
No.
All right. So the bottom line is Bad Bunny aside, I wanted to talk for a minute about some things that are like evidence, in my opinion, that we're watching a rise of America right now. I really do believe that. I think that number one, there's been a faith revival growing. There's also there's actual economic investment indicating that things are trending in the right direction. And then absolute patriotism, I think, is on the rise. And I'm going to talk about that when we get back, because I don't want you to believe for a second that because the NFL can't get its act together and stop woke virtue signaling and bringing in somebody like Bad Bunny to be the Super Bowl halftime. I mean, I haven't watched a Super Bowl halftime show now in several years. This is probably the one that I would absolutely turn the TV off to make sure it doesn't play in my den while it's on. That being said, there's some cool stuff happening. America Rising. We'll talk about it when we get back.
Yeah,
stability.
Well, the tail rotor is there to counter the torque of the main rotor system. Again, if you think about a drill, people are familiar with that. You pull the trigger, you can feel it want to turn. That's torque. So the same thing's happening to a helicopter, obviously with a lot more force. The tail rotor is mounted horizontally to push against that force that's wanting the airframe to spin. Once that tail rotor is gone, there's nothing. So essentially, if you were left affected by anything else, what would eventually happen is the airframe, minus wind drag, obviously, would be spinning as fast as the rotor blades are in the opposite direction. Yeah. That's essentially once it reached equilibrium. That will never happen, but that's how much force you're talking about here. And I remember looking at my feet, trying to convince myself you're doing the right thing in terms of which pedal you're pushing, but it is having no effect on the aircraft. And then I'm like, okay, we lost the tail rotor. Again, this is you can't train that. There's no, you can't do it in a simulator. I mean, we can do a loss of tail rotor in a simulator, but you can't do the violent effects the physical violent effects of the airframe in a simulator. But I knew what had happened, and the only thing you can do is shut the engines off, because again, that's what's creating that torque. So if you can remove that force, it'll stop that spin, but now you have no engines.
Yeah.
So that's not good either, especially at low altitude. But it's what you have to do. You can't possibly maintain control of the aircraft if it's just spinning out of control. So in a Black Hawk, we don't have control of the engines on the flight controls. So the co-pilot or the non-flying pilot has to shut the engines off. So I looked over at Ray and I said, "We lost the tail. We better pull him off." And he knew he was an experienced guy. I actually had more experience than I did, and pulled the engines off. But we're spinning so fast that he said, and we talked about it on the ground afterwards, typical instructor pilots. He said, "We're spinning so fast, the centrifugal force was causing him to not be able to lift his arms up over his head," which is where the engine power control levers are. So he got one to idle and got one about halfway off, which slowed the spin but didn't stop it. And now, with no engine power, we're falling out of the sky like a Coke machine. And all I could do is try to keep the aircraft from flipping upside down, which, again, I don't know if anything I did made a difference, honestly, but all I can tell you is we crashed right on the wheels. And that's the only reason I'm still here.
All right, so you're on impact. Now, you said something on the ground. Did Ray make it?
Yeah,
okay.
We all survived the crash.
Okay.
The crew chiefs were hurt really bad because they don't, first of all, they don't have as good as seats, at least in that version of the aircraft. It's been improved since. And they're probably not strapped in, meaning, they operate on what we call monkey harnesses back there.
Yeah.
So they're on a strap, but they're not strapped into their seats, which have, all of the crash survivability.
I use those as a jump master in Blackhawks.
Because it allows you to move around and do the things you need to do. And, you get in the seat when you have to land. Well, they didn't, obviously we're not planning to land, so they're probably not strapped in, or at least not likely that they're both strapped in. So, that violent crash, they were probably not going to make it. But Ray, he was not hurt as bad as I was. And we're talking, once I regained consciousness, we're talking about what happened, and there was no reason to talk about what happened. We should have been talking about, hey, the heck, we're going to survive the next 5 minutes here. But we did, and that's when he explained what he had tried to do. And then he was able to get himself out of the cockpit. There's no way I could get out. I had a femur fracture, crushed vertebrae in my spine. It's hard to get out of a Black Hawk cockpit when you're healthy. Mm-hmm. With those injuries, there's no way. So I just thought, I'm just going to fight it out from the cockpit.
I did not recall that your co-pilot had made it, but they didn't survive. Am I correct?
Well, they were killed in a firefight.
Yeah, they're all killed in the firefight. Yeah, I remember that now. All right, you're still stuck in the cockpit. I remember, I'm assuming it was when I read it, that you had a kind of an off-the-books weapon. Didn't you have an MP5 or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches, North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And by the way, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, logging in, streaming the show, live streaming. Places like YouTube, X, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, there's tons of podcasters, tons of podcasters catching the show after the fact. I say all that to say, we can see it, we know it, we can tell the numbers, and we know where you are, and it just means the world to us that you're there. The fact that you catch this show in whatever form, we appreciate it. We can't do it without you. You are the reason why we do it. So I'm doing this section on America Rising. And I had the story about Bad Bunny at first, because I think that's still an anomaly. I think that the ICE protests and the liberal hacks in certain blue venues do not represent the balance of America. I think that there is a clear indication that America is rising on a number of fronts. Look at our military, first of all. The idea of peace through strength is back. Military recruiting is through the roof. We met mission on recruiting in all branches well before the end of the fiscal year and exceeded expectations at like 30-year highs where we had been at 40-year lows. That's incredible. I love that. I can look at things like our standing on the world stage. Other nations are once again having to react to what the United States thinks, says, and does. And so when our foreign policy drives the train, that means that America's presence as a leader on the world stage is back in its rightful place. But we can't be the world's only true superpower and have zero influence on world affairs. It just doesn't work that way. And I think we're back. I think that we are literally seeing the influence of the United States in a big way, and well, we should. And then they got stories like this. Now we've seen like $1 trillion in outside foreign investment coming into the United States since Trump took office. But we also see this, like Stellantis, which is the French-Italian-American automaker. I think they're the parent company of Ford, if I'm not mistaken, Stellantis. But they're about to announce $10 billion in new U.S. investment in places like Illinois and Michigan. So, yeah. I mean, Stellantis had warned they were going to be hit by tariffs, but the tariffs are now bringing them back to opening and reinstituting plans to do more in the United States. So, yeah, Stellantis had reintroduced. That's right. Stellantis owns Jeep. That's what it is.
Yeah, I was just about to.
Yeah, Jeep and Dodge. The Stellantis is reintroducing models, including the Jeep Cherokee, Ram trucks, new Dodge V8 muscle car. Yeah. Well, that just fired me up. Give me a sound effect that sounds like we just got a new V8 muscle car coming back. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. I think I'm going to have a Hellcat Challenger in my life. I just think so.
One of my friends has one. It gets up and goes. I'll just say that.
So I do believe that one of the indications that America's rising can be seen right now in the investment that the private sector is making back into the markets that it wasn't making. You know, automakers were under siege from the Biden administration, forced into doing EVs that weren't selling and losing billions of dollars in the process. Now they're investing billions in the United States. Then there's this patriotism. I don't mean like this, like military recruiting. I'm talking about actually patriotism, like companies waving the flag. Not the least of which, Steak and Shake. We need a Steak and Shake around here.
Yeah, we do.
Steak and Shake says that announced Saturday it's going to begin installing massive American flags at all of its restaurants across the country.
I don't know who is like in charge of Steak and Shake, but they are. Let's just say they're very vocal in their conservatism, and
yes,
they were very, very vocal going after Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, they were. They're based out of Indianapolis, by the way. So Jeff from Indiana, you can be proud. Mm-hmm. But they're in a post to their X account. The Indianapolis-based burger chain announced the patriotic initiative, noting that it proudly supports American values and traditions. And flag installations have now begun at Steak and Shake. We'll be putting up the largest American flags that each local government's ordinances will allow. Steak and Shake proudly supports American values and traditions. By the way, that one social media post got like 650,000 views by Saturday. Nice.
Steak and Shake actually was also the first fast food restaurant to start frying their food in beef towel oil after RFK asked them to do so.
That's here in the article right here, as a matter of fact. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's and they didn't waste time either. They went ahead and just jumped right on it. So patriotism, yes, I do think that's another clear indication. And then there's faith. I really do believe you're seeing a movement. I'm seeing things right now happening and hearing about them anecdotally as well. That, I mean, like, for instance, I think that the assassination of Charlie Kirk has been a galvanizing moment. I've heard more people talk about the fact that it has moved them back to church, or it has moved them back to a place of, trying to find God in their life again, or moved them to a change of their lifestyle. I think we're seeing a revival. There's a piece on Daily Wire that I pulled today. Hannah Lape wrote this. It came out yesterday. And it talks about the fact that the left does seem to embrace a mockery of God. But right now, what we're watching is people are seeing their churches and asking their churches to get more involved. And people are seeing their churches as a place they want to be. And the article goes on to say, America needs Christian ideas. Unborn babies, children, marriages, families need Christian ideas. Unbelievers need the truth, love, joy, compassion, goodness, dignity, charity, freedom, moral order, and righteousness that come from Christian ideas. If the belief that Christian ideas should govern society makes us too extreme for the cool kids table, well, then so be it. If proclaiming biblical truth about the sanctity of life and children's innocence and godly marriage and the created dignity of the sexes is deemed too political, then again, so be it. The church is not called to cultural appeasement. It is called to destroy the arguments and every lofty opinion raised up against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. That's 2 Corinthians 10:5. So it ends by saying the answer to our nation's cultural schism is not a thoughtless kumbaya with the left. It's a revival in our churches. And y'all, I'll be honest with you, I think we're seeing that. I think the trends are there for that. I think what we're watching more and more is the ideas that the left embraces, whether it be anti-patriotism, whether it be crushing the private sector markets, whether it be forcing the military into DEI and critical race theory and all the things that make us, less effective and less ready, or whether it be matters of faith. I think that we're watching the upsurge of America right now. Everything that people around the world idealize about America is back on the rise. And personally, I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. There. What do you think about that, JP?
I agree. And I can tell you that it's for sure happening in my generation of people going back to church after the Charlie Kirk assassination. People realizing it's actually cool to be conservative.
Yep.
So although, the left may be extremely loud with their, like anti-Americanism, their anti-God ideas, just because they're louder does not mean they're the majority. So it's hard. It's easy to get discouraged when you see like Bad Bunny on the Super Bowl halftime show. But I think that is a very small and shrinking bubble of people that want to virtue signal. I think majority of America is turning against that.
We're ready for the era of common sense to return.
Mm-hmm.
We're ready for America to allow to be America. And we don't think you have to break America and remold it for it to be America.
No, you can't just make America whatever you want it to be.
That's exactly right. A few text messages before I go to the break. Adam from Athens says, we have a Steak and Shake in Huntsville. Watch for the flagpole, dude. Tell me when it goes up. Mark from Huntsville says, I'm heading to Steak and Shake right now because of the American flag. Steak and Shake should be a sponsor of this show.
All for it.
Alex Mathis says, Colonel, if you get a challenger, are you going to name it Charlene? No, I would not name it Charlene. I would not name it Charlene. It would. Now I'm thinking about that. I don't know.
I stopped naming cars after my first car got totaled and I named it and I got too attached. So now I don't name cars anymore.
We name our cars. I drive a Jeep Gladiator. Its name is Maximus.
I can't do it anymore. I get too attached.
John from Huntsville says, Phil, what happened to the idea of having real singers like Carrie Underwood perform at the halftime show? Also, I've never even heard of Bad Bunny. It sounds like the Easter Bunny split personality. Perfect. Well played, sir. Good job, John. Pastor Dave also, by the way, has checked on the text line. We got you in the text line. You are now logged into the system, Pastor Dave. Thank you very much. And we appreciate you. He says the power is in the people. If everybody would turn off the Super Bowl, that would send a huge message to a big company like that. I agree. Totally. Robert from Hazel Green says, I don't understand why any patriotic American will watch the Super Bowl or the NFL after what they did during the Black Lives Matter scam. Yeah, and I wonder, will they play the Black National Anthem at the Super Bowl?
I believe they did the last
still doing
time.
That, right?
Yes, they did it on the opening game. I'm not sure if they're doing it before every game, but they did it before the opener, and I think they did it last Super Bowl. So I think that's the case, but that's also them being scared and spineless to like walk it back. They kowtowed to the left way too much during BLM, so now they're scared to. They feel like if they come back a little, it's just going to cause an uprising.
Yeah. Dave from Capshaw says the NFL is demonstrably anti-American, but they still want our money. Yes, they do. Paul from Athens says new hashtag suggestion about walkout Super Bowl. Hashtags are fairly dead. Like
on X, they are
on X does not even want hashtags.
Yeah, they don't do it anymore. Hashtags may be cool on like Instagram, but that's about it.
Jeff from Indiana says just past the Wienermobile in Nashville, he's heading your way. And then Tom with all the kids in Huntsville says during the 1970s, there was a period of 18 months with 5 bombings a day, but nowadays they're using guns, maybe because they're trying to push gun control. Where are we at right now? What's he talking about?
When we were talking about big blue cities, gun crime.
Oh, wow.
Talking about Stephen Reed, talking about it was gun laws.
Gotcha. All right. That's it. We're going to take a break right now. And by the way, I do see that. I was thinking about that too. JP needs to download the Ric Flair woo sound effect.
That can happen.
About that.
That can happen.
I can think about that. All right. We're taking a break. Coming right back. Last break of the day on a Meatloaf Monday. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. That was that standard issue or was that
for us?
Yeah, it was. Okay.
Yeah, we used the MP5. They don't use it anymore, I don't think. But that was our. We had an M9 pistol and an MP5.
So you wound up having to engage targets yourself while you're on the ground in the cockpit?
Actually, not from the cockpit. That's one area where Black Hawk Down deviates from what actually happened. I mean, I did consult a little bit on the movie, but really not much. I guess if they're going to exaggerate something and make you look better than you actually were, that's a good thing. But yeah, they have me, blasting away from the cockpit. It was amazing how quickly Gary Gordon and Randy Sugart got to the cockpit. There were no Somalis there yet. And that's why I hadn't fired any rounds. I had my MP5. I was ready to go, but nobody had showed up. And then all of a sudden, Gary and Randy are standing next to the cockpit. And I'm like, wow, this is over. There's a rescue force here.
Which is an amazing story in itself. I mean, both of them wound up with the Medal of Honor posthumously. But I recall reading that they both requested 7 times to be put on the ground, knowing full well that there was only going to be 2 of them and no telling how long till the guys of the Rangers got there.
You're right about all of that. And again, I only know about it secondhand because obviously I'm not on the aircraft with them. But they were told initially no, and eventually convinced the leadership that if they were not let in, we were lost. And, you don't know what's in the mind of someone else, but they had to know, hey, this is going to be dicey at a minimum because it took 8 hours for another American to get to our crash site.
Yeah, which is crazy when you think about the fact that as you were going down, you could see the airfield roughly 2 miles away, and yet it took 8 hours for anybody to get there.
And it's because, well, we were resource constrained, and there were so many things happening. You had 6-1's crash site, you had the convoy, you had the target, now you had my crash site. So really, the commander's got 4 things that he's got to deal with, and he didn't even really have the resources for one.
By the way, I'm going to chase a rabbit real quick. I don't know if you heard this yet, but the whole base renaming thing that happened.
I was going to bring this up
about Gary Gordon.
Yeah. And it's a brilliant solution. And I just read it a couple days ago.
Yeah. For those who don't know, that Fort Gordon was one of the names that nobody knew was apparently tied to a Confederate. I didn't know that Benning was. I didn't know that Rucker was. I just went and trained there, as I'm sure you probably did. But Fort Gordon got renamed to something, but Fort Gordon's getting its name back for your rescuer, Gary Gordon.
Right.
Yeah. That's, I think that's pretty. Now we got to find a Fort Shugart somewhere.
Yeah. They might have to create one. Yeah.
What do you recall about Shugart and Gordon being on the ground? I mean, I've read their story separately. I've read it in your book, but give me and the listeners, when they got on the ground and were talking, what were your thoughts? What was the conversation?
It was brief, purely mission focused. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They knew, hey, look, we got to get him out of the cockpit, meaning me, because I'm too vulnerable there. I'm sitting up, basically up off the ground, elevated, and so that was one of the primary things they wanted to get done is get me out of there, and then essentially, as well as I could, set up a perimeter. Now, the way the geography of this crash site was, there was a wall right to the right. The nose is pointing forward as I'm sitting here, and there's a wall right to the right. Now it's just a corrugated tin wall, basically, but still, there's no way for someone to access the site from there. So I believe their decision was, we're going to go secure the left side, put me on the right, and that is in fact where the attack primarily came from, was the left side. So I can hear it, and then I could see Somalis, onesie twosies. I fired all the rounds in my weapon at the Somalis that tried to come in on the right side, but the bulk of the attack came from the left side.
How long was Shugart and Gordon in the mix? I mean, how long until they were actually taken?
It's hard to say. I know there's an official timeline somewhere. I honestly don't recall. Time is so hard to judge when things are in that state of chaos. I would say probably 10 minutes, maybe 15, from the time they showed up to the side of the aircraft to, Gary went down first, and at that point, Randy's almost out of ammunition already. And he came around and he asked me where the crew chief's weapons were, and I told him, and he went in, grabbed one, and then he gave me what I believe was Gary's weapon, which still had rounds in it, because I had fired all the rounds out of my MP5. And then he went around the nose of the bird. He made a quick radio call, and we were told on the radio that a reaction force was en route. Again, cause for a little bit of optimism here. Yeah. And then he went and made his last stand on the other side.
Were 160th aircraft overhead? I mean, were you getting any kind of air cover at all when you were down?
Well, we're not getting any air cover, but that call that he made that call on what we call the fire net.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Oh, man, like making common sense like a superpower. Bulletproof influence, baby. Bulletproof influence. Will from Hartselle was our brand new texter. Will, we're glad you're on board. Thank you very much. We got you plugged into the system. Please text us anytime. Lewis from Trinity said, back in the day when I was bouncing for a large nightclub in Atlanta called Rupert, Ric Flair would come in with his entourage. We had a huge staircase going down to the main floor. He would come in every 3 steps. He would stop and throw his arms in the air and give his big woo. 1,000 people would stop and cheer as he descended the staircase.
As y'all should have.
The man could do an entrance. And then John from Huntsville says, Phil gets an A+ for his fantastic performance and spot-on comments. However, today's winner is JP with an A+ for his nearly perfect performance and for doing a good job keeping up with social media text today. Congratulations, but I still hope Alabama loses to Missouri.
Thank you, and I'm sure you do.
You just tip your hat? Is that what that was?
I did. You can't see it on the radio, but I did, yeah.
Nice. Let me go to the phones real quick because he's on there. You know who it is. It's Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing real good after seeing the Wienermobile running down the road.
Wienermobile? What's a Wienermobile doing?
It's heading your direction. I always do something that's really mean, that planet earworm,
No, don't do it.
I don't see.
That's just wrong.
That'll be in your head the rest of the day.
Don't worry. Now I'm going to be singing all the old I Am Stuck on Band-Aid because Band-Aid stuck on me. I can sing them all. I can go there.
There you go.
What's on your mind, man?
That's the best advertisement program in the world there. I don't know what it costs, but it's surely effective.
It's the original food truck, and it's the best one.
Yeah. The thing about it is, Phil, on this judges out there that's denying in Portland that denies that we can go in there with troops after ICE has been surrounded and been threatened like they have been and everything. This judge, he should count his blessings that he's doing this against the conservatives. Because if he ever did, we may, get angry at him and everything, but we're not going to dox him. We're not going to go, threaten his life and stuff.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if this was a different organization and he was doing something against the left? And what would be going on? That they would be doxing and maybe threatening his life and everything, like Democrats do, basically.
It's a great point. It's interesting. By the way, the judge is a she. I think it's a female judge, and I got to look back, but I think she might even be a Trump appointee, which is unusual.
Yes, she's a Trump appointee.
Yeah. So,
but this goes to show you can't always pick them.
you can't. No. And I listen, I think in the end, we're going to find that the Supreme Court is going to say these deployments are allowed. And Trump just has to make certain cases for it to go, and he will. And guess what? It'll go. But I don't get why these cities though are so resistant. Trump can't send us help. We don't want his help. Yeah. They're not coming there to militarize the streets. They're coming there to help your law enforcement, your own cops. I mean, it's unreal.
I mean, I just hope karma catches her one day that, she would be threatening everything and say, well, sorry, we're not going to put any, you're a federal person. The state's not going to protect you anymore. You're on your own.
Wow. That's a great point. Yeah. She works in a federal courthouse and it could come under attack, but the bottom line is blue cities have got to reconcile their hate for Trump and become more in love with the idea of taking care of their people than they are resisting Trump. It's nauseating to watch the rhetoric coming out of people like Brandon Johnson and Karen Bass and and the others like the governor of Illinois, the governor of Oregon, who just can't stand Trump to the point that they will refuse the idea of federal help. I mean, I have a feeling like if a tornado wiped out their city, they would not even call FEMA right now because they're afraid Trump would get some credit for it. It's ridiculous.
It's like they say, if Trump said oxygen is good for you, then there'd be a lot of people falling over with plastic bags over their heads. And we could tell who all was Democrats, I guess. Yeah. If Trump says it's good, it's got to be bad. And that's it's derangement. This truly is a mental illness. I mean, history will show that these people are actually nuts.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yes. And they somehow, I'm not sure if all of them believe what they're doing, but they definitely have a Trump derangement syndrome. But hey, real quick, I got to ask you before we go. I got to ask you though. Shout out to your folks at the Indianapolis-based Steak and Shake who are going patriotic and putting flagpoles up at every one of their restaurants.
And it's good because Steak and Shake was in a little trouble here. I mean, they had one in Evansville, Indiana that I used to go to, and it closed because of lack of business and stuff. And so I'm hoping that they can make a comeback because they weren't doing too good here lately.
Well, if you ate fewer fried fish and pickled eggs from truck stops and ate more at Steak and Shake, they wouldn't have closed.
Well, I don't eat near as much anymore because I'm on Montgomery. I'm losing weight, man.
Oh, well, good for you. All right, dude. Hey, the music's about to play. You be safe on the road, man.
Have a good one now.
See you, buddy.
Remember that song?
Oh, yeah. What I can see you. That's awful. It's going to be stuck in my head now. Wait, what song? Sing another song real quick.
Well, there's a song right here. The bumper music coming in.
Oh, the bump's playing. Okay. That means we're done. All right. Done for the day, but not gone for the week. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, as I always say, there are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.